Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'd like to call this Town Council of Farmington meeting on March 11th, 2026 to order. And Patty, would you like to do the pledge for us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's go to item C. I'd like to open the floor up for public comment. You get 5 minutes. Please give us your name and your address.
Do I have to stick specifically to the budget?
No.
Just public comment.
So, this is Paul Krell. I have property on Meadow Road. I think it's 374 or 376. And I've been involved with the sidewalk committee for some time now. And, damn, I didn't bring it. Oh well. One of the problems is that we never had the survey. There's a newspaper article dated August, and the life of me, it either fell out of my folder or it's in my car. And the article is put out by some small, I think they're down in North Carolina, firm. But the key to the article was the sidewalk committee, including people here, was interested in having the folks on Meadow Road surveyed. And I've been pushing that for a long time. And in September, when I asked when it was going to be done, I was told it's going to be wait until after the election because they didn't want to make it political. Now, my knowledge of democracy is this is political. It's about what the people want. And the people select who they want in the council based on the political, not on a dictator saying, you're going to do this. Not that I'm saying anybody is. That never happened. So after the election, I went back in and I asked, in December I was sick. I asked, and I was looking through the minutes. I couldn't find anything that said that we weren't going to do it. But when the development for that special meeting that was held, 3 weeks ago for the town, it excluded Meadow Road totally, which was kind of interesting because my brother went, Mark Krell, and he raised the question. So in the future, wouldn't people on the sidewalk proposal, shouldn't they be met with, have input into what's going to happen? And he was interrupted to say, we're not here to talk about Meadow Road, which really should have been. And he said, we're not. I'm talking about in the future. Now, this sidewalk is the first in 20 years per the town manager. I think it was 20 or 25. I would like to propose that before you go any further, that you create a new committee with the street. I started talking to some of the folks. There are mixed reactions. And have them come up with a solution. I'm not sure that it's going to be good for everybody, but it's certainly not good for that town because the town's already moving forward, putting the plans together. Now, there's also, aside from that, I had asked for a copy of the Justin Lane agreement on clearing the snow. My understanding, based on the response I got, was that it's not in writing, but there's a verbal. One of the proposal I would make in the new sidewalk committee would be extend the agreement from Judson Lane up both directions and take care of the snow removal. Treat it as an extension of the school or wherever you want to call it. Come up with what you want. It's a unique situation, the first in 20 years, that could potentially help solve the problem. I have raised an issue that 200 feet at my end, and I think 200 feet at the other end in front of the pond, there's an easement. When they bought my grandfather's farm, Patty's at that point, the state was involved, there was an easement put on, and there's a dispute as to whether or not the sidewalk can go on or not. When I talk to the EP, they tell me, no. They tell me, come see them if they insist on it going through. I really would hope that I don't have to have it on my grandfather's farm. But that's some of the stuff I didn't cover yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment in chambers?
I found a pen. Is this yours, Kathy?
No.
No, all right. Okay, I'll keep.
Paul, did you leave a pen up there?
Here you go, man. All right. Not too bad. Tim Kelly, 62 Westview. All right. Since the latest CPI inflation numbers were just announced this morning, for those of you who didn't hear it, came in at 2.4%. Now, whether you think the number should be 2.4 or 2.6 or 2.8, the Farmington School proposed budget increase is more than 50% higher than that at 4.35%. And I think it's probably a bad strategy for us to go out to the taxpayers with a pitch that says, you know, our inflation is higher or tougher than yours. You know, by the way, 25% of residents in town are over age 60. The Social Security COLA this year was 2.8%. So you have a lot of benchmarks to think about there. And, you know, gas prices are going to go up and they're going to go down, and then we'll start a new school year in September. Anyway, it's probably a good idea to start with a common understanding of what we actually spend on education today. For some reason, nobody ever seems to put all the numbers on one easy-to-read sheet of paper. So you can take a second to look at your handout. Presently in Farmington, education is a $100 million business. In other towns like Avon and Bristol, there's a board of finance to help cull through line items and vet these budgets. In Farmington, that is your job on the council. Given that well over 80% of the Farmington school budget is dedicated to salaries and benefits, that's the first place to look for savings. In the superintendent's presentation last night, it showed that we are not increasing headcount and that the general wage increase given is 3% for the year, with no increase in stipends. However, the salary line calls for an increase of over 4%. This creates a budget padding of $600,000 to $700,000. Unfortunately, this has become an annual practice at Farmington schools, and that's just too much slack to have in the system. So between this amount, say $650K, and over $300K of undesignated funds currently stashed in the recently established non-recurring account, you have $1 million of immediate potential savings. Reducing this fluff will have no impact on people or programs. All right. Now get to the hard part. All right. I think we can all agree Farmington Public Schools is in the business of educating students. So the first key component of school budget is the actual number of pupils you need to teach. This drives the quantity of classrooms, number of teachers, amount of potential special services, etc. It's the foundation to the whole budget construct. The proposed school budget presently assumes a student count of 3,990, about the same as our current enrollment of 4,000. Since we are building the entire FPS budget on this assumption, let's take a closer look at it. In the last cycle, we saw the push-up numbers, and I think most of you know what that is, just graduating everybody up to the next level, yield an actual enrollment of 4,000. So the push-up number was 3,987, if you're on first page of the handout, and that gave us an enrollment of 4,000. The BOE chose to go with a different enrollment estimate and booked our current school budget at 4,100 students, and over projection of 100 kids. That's a big miss at 20,000 per pupil cost. Now for the coming year, the push-up number is down to 3,927 students. So that's page 2 of your handout. But the school system wants a budget based on enrollment of 3,990. So if last year's push-up number of 3,987 gave us an actual enrollment of 4,000, how does this year's push-up of 3,927, 60 less, yield an enrollment of 3,990, which is only 10 less? And that's shown on page 3 of the handout. So you're going to need to be extremely granular in describing how you got there.
All right. Thank you, Tim.
All right.
Appreciate it.
So-
Appreciate the work.
Last point here
That's
is
more at time.
I'm going to ask that because of the impact on headcount and the emotional issue here, that any council member who has a spouse full-time in the school system recuse themselves from the detailed review.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tim. Do we have anyone else in chambers who would like to make a comment for public comment? Not seeing anyone else in chambers. Kat, do we have anyone online who has raised their hand?
Nope, no hands on mine.
Okay, let's give it a moment. Do we have anyone else raised?
Nope.
All right, well, let's close public comment, and thank you everyone who shared their thoughts. I appreciate that. Let's move on to D, to consider the proposed 2026-27 budget.
Brian, would you like me to kind of like give an overview of the evening?
Please do.
Okay, so typically what we would do is that the board would come up and you guys will go through the board's budget. After you're done with that, we have, we'll take a break, we'll have sandwiches, and then my staff will start, and we'll start, I think we were thinking of doing general administration we can do. I thought we'd hit some of the capital projects where we can have some discussion about that, debt service, and potentially the special revenue funds, depending on how much time we had. And we were aiming to go between about 8 o'clock at the latest.
Mhm.
Does that work for everyone? Okay, all right.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay. Welcome aboard.
Okay. All right, my friends, come on up. Look forward to hearing from you guys. Thanks for presenting the Board of Ed budget. Welcome. And team.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, members of the town council and members of the community. Thank you for having us here this afternoon to go back through our recommended Board of Education budget for the 2026-2027 school year. We're hoping to have our team available to answer any questions you might have. If you'll humor us just for a moment, I realize there's some members of the team here that you might not be familiar with. So just in case, we'll just quickly wrap around, introduce ourselves, and then we'll kick it off. Matt looks thrilled to start with that. So we'll have
Matt Ross, Director of Finance and Operations.
Wendy Banish, Director of Special Services.
Dan Sajun, Assistant Superintendent, Finance and Operations.
I run through
I'm Beth Haber, I'm the business.
I think I got everyone. So
Sam Kilpatrick, our Director of Facilities, will be on his way. Just had a union matter he had to address.
all right, thank you. This is the team that's been working since probably last spring to put this budget together, so you know who's in the room answering your question. Okay, great, we're on slide 13 already. So last evening, just chose this slide to kick us off this afternoon. Last evening, we went through the budget, and presented here is that high-level overview of each series found in the overall operating budget that represents the changes from last year to this year's recommendation. Take a moment to just review that. And then we can skip ahead 2 slides, Mr. Ross, and we will begin with the 100 series salaries. So just a reminder, this budget driver salaries, the 100 series, is a recommended overall increase of 4%. The 100 series accounts for 66% of our total budget and reflects negotiated contract obligations for all staff. So with that, I will open it up to questions. And as I mentioned, our team's here to walk you through it.
Do you have any questions, Keith?
No, I don't.
Okay, Bill, any questions?
Not in this object. I have other questions down the road, but not with respect to salaries.
We had public comment this evening about the salary line, or this afternoon about the salary line increase. So it's a GWI of 3%, but that's also plus a step increase. So it's the 4% increase because there's also a step for the faculty.
So the total salary line, obviously that we do have a new teacher contract that's coming into play, starting from next year. And so that has the step and then the increase in there. And then obviously that would also be adjustments for, any kind of staffing changes and different pieces that are there.
And this item is your best understanding of what the faculty body is going to look like next year, because you can't really predict on what step everyone's going to be.
So generally speaking, in grades 1 through 12, we have a pretty set understanding of what those numbers will be. I think most educators running a school district would tell you, kindergarten is a moving target from time to time. We do use information from demographers, but that said, there are years where we might have more kindergarteners than we expected or less. Having run an elementary school in the past for several years, there's times where we were surprised even come August when you might have what could fill up an entire classroom of students move in, and times where it's less than that. So kindergarten's always the variable, but generally speaking, those numbers in grades 1 through 12 are pretty accurate to our needs.
And one other group of questions, the salaries section, is that where we're adding in the supervisor for special services?
Yeah, can you go to the next slide, Matt? So one of our themes this year was just shifting resources. And as spoke a little bit about last night, but certainly with Wendy here with us this afternoon, if you have some specific questions, I know she'd be happy to walk you through it. We've seen an increase in need in the student services department. So while our overall numbers of students who have IEPs and 504s hasn't increased dramatically, the complexity of those needs has. And we see our teams, there's an overabundance of responding to needs, reaching out for support. We also, and I don't have the exact numbers, but I know Wendy does, the number of PPTs, meetings, responding to students in crisis has grown tremendously. And one of the things we want our leaders in every school and departments to be able to do is be able to be providing leadership on the ground level day in and day out to their departments. And that's one of the things that I have heard from Wendy and her team, that in responding to, I don't want to say emergencies, but emergent needs on a regular basis has prevented them from doing that. And so we believe that boosting leadership in that department will do two things. It'll make us more responsive as a school district to those student needs, but it'll also help us to avoid future issues that tend to come up when our leadership is spread thin. This chart represents some of those changes. So we see the overall impact in terms of certified FTE. I don't want to be misleading. That's the number of full-time staff. And so obviously there's variability within that. We do recommend a reduction in elementary positions of 7.4 positions. And then we have the addition of the secondary supervisor of special education, and then the care team member who is also a special a student services staff member.
Thank you. If you had a follow-up.
Well, I did. Well, it's funny because actually I do have some questions on this, but if you have one, I'll wait my turn. We come back though. Thanks, Brian.
There are a few places within the salary series where there's shifting from to grants, off of grants, and one of the concerns we've had in prior years is making sure that we're not shifting to grants only to have those grants go away the following year. So we have to shift back to operating. In some of them, for example, it's like there's a 0.5 FTE school psychologist. So I don't know that it makes sense to go through each of them individually, because individually they're a little smaller, but can you maybe speak to the process that you've used in evaluating where they're going to grant and where they're or shifting to grant or shifting back to operating, if that question makes sense?
So we always work to be very thoughtful about making sure that we don't end up doing that putting, salaries onto grants that may be, that aren't there, in future years, and then putting the burden back onto the operating expense. So when we put them on the, when we put salaries on the grants, it's typically with, IDA, Title I, ones that have almost become, I don't know if I want to say entitlements, but ones that have been pretty consistent year in and year out. And while we would always, we would always appreciate the federal government kind of increase those at a kind of rate, they tend to typically stay flat, but they tend to be very consistent. And so when we have those, when we do shifting of those, a lot of times it's actually more for really just accounting purposes. A lot of times, because once again, the salaries for us will increase based on the contract. And so now, in order to take a position to keep them on the grant, now it becomes 100% of that salary doesn't fit. It's 93%, and so then 0.7 has to go back onto operating. So what we might do is we might shift that person and then find somebody who's on the operating and then shift them onto the grant. So it just keeps them as a whole, so that when we're kind of keeping track of employees, they're not listed as a
partial grant,
0.67 and a salary here and a 0.33. Ann will, our director of HR, she'll look through and see if there's ones that we can just kind of fit nice and cleanly as 1.0s. So for the most part, when you see some of those shifting, it's really mostly accounting purposes, but we always want to make sure we're super transparent about things. And so when we talk about shifting, we'll say those, but generally speaking, there's very rare that if we have a grant that we think is a 1-year grant or it has an expiration on it and it's not an annual grant that we would expect to get, it's I don't want to say ever, but it's rare that we would put that salary on there because of the point that you made.
Okay. I don't have any other questions on this right now.
Just real quick. So, I wanted to clarify something that was said last night. Make sure that I heard it correctly. The 0.4 for special ed and the 0.5 for special ed, those are existing staff members whose hours are basically expanding.
Yeah, so we have, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So the 0.5 school psychologist, we currently have someone at a 0.5, it's moving to a 1.0. obviously contractual, pieces there that, to see, they have to decide if they would want to apply to move up to the 1.0 and increasing there. And the 0.4, Wendy,
Is a new
that one's a
addition.
new for increasing needs.
But it's a person, so that'd be a new body or someone who's here who's getting an expanding role.
No, it would be a new body.
A new body.
Okay. Can I also want to turn over to the non-certified staff? I saw you reduced 2.0 paraprofessionals. So, we understand, and you've indicated that there's a expanding need and identified population of students with challenges. Can you help inform us as to the decision as to why we're reducing on paras? And really, I understand maybe in the short term, but what I worry about is in the out years. When we may need them again. So kind of walk me through that if you could, please.
So you can never predict the
Right.
needs, but one of the things.
Excuse
that
me,
we
Wendy, could use the microphone.
Oh, yep. So one of the things that we are trying to do is with that level of staff, what we know is there is consistent turnover all of the time. So in order to support those needs and then the scope of what we're looking at, our students that have more significant needs need more related service providers, right? So they need speech and language, they need nursing services, they need the school psychologist services. So and we want to support them and make them as independent as possible. So as we looked at these things with the turnover that we have in staff, there's a natural decline each year for turnover and people to be vacating those paraprofessional staffs. So supporting them with the certified staff is just leveraging really the quality of instruction and really meeting their needs rather than staffing them with a paraprofessional that doesn't have the specialized training needed to really support what the actual service is that's being delivered.
So it sounds, it makes perfect sense. So what you're trying to do is deliver value
Correct.
in terms of the type of service that's being provided. And I guess historically you might take a situation with a child that needs, and you I don't want to minimize it, but you put that child with a para that's not really responding to that child's needs. And so this budget kind of
Does.
steps away from that a little bit and says, no, what, we recognize this population of students that require different types of interventions. A paraprofessional in and of itself doesn't really respond to that cohort of students' needs. These other positions do. So you're reducing staff to provide some additional value. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, that's something that we want to stress, that when we started doing this budget development, a lot of it was, okay, identifying those needs, whether it's, the 0.5 nurse, but also being thoughtful from a fiscal standpoint and saying, okay, how do we pay for that without just adding. And so looking and kind of really having thoughtful conversations about what were those opportunities that we can try to kind of make it as cost neutral as possible, but while making sure we're meeting the needs of the students, but at the same time being fiscally responsible.
So it sounds like, it's a thoughtful approach to probably the biggest, percent change in our budget is the special ed line, basically, right? It's not really a line, but you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And that's really well done. I don't know if this is a good time. Wendy, I know from wearing my prior hat, you do quite a bit in terms of trying to minimize the financial responsibility of the district for kids with special needs. And I know you've been leveraging grants and other sources of funding. And I think it's a story that has not really been told, or given the amount of attention it requires, because it is an important story to tell, because this budget looks a heck of a lot different, right? Your proposed budget looks a heck of a lot different without some of the work that I know you're doing to help minimize our costs. Can you talk a little bit about some of the stuff Jess, how you guys want to present that? But
Sure.
I'm curious to hear about the work that you do to make the budget work the way it does.
Well, some of the advantages have been, and it's all along the same lines of, while overall our special needs numbers look like they're flat, the intensity of those needs is growing. So those children are requiring more services. With that service delivery, what we've also had the opportunity to do, which we didn't have historically in the past, is for our excess cost grant, now some of our in-district students would actually meet the threshold where we could apply for getting money back from the state too, for those children and their needs. So that has provided us with opportunities to be able to support and bolster services in ways that we were not able to do in the past.
Can you explain what that actually means? Because these are kids that we wouldn't be getting reimbursed for. And these are in-district students that we're not getting state reimbursement for, but you've been able to, with the additional work that you're doing, you're identifying certain needs that which would trigger state reimbursement that we otherwise might not be getting.
Correct. When you calculate the needs and services for what the children are actually receiving, they now meet that threshold where we can apply for the grant. Before, if they were below that certain 4.5 times threshold, we would not be able to apply for them on the grant and we would not be receiving any money back. But because of approximately, I would say more than 68% of the special needs caseload now have students that have very complex needs with multiple services. They reach that 4.5 times threshold, which allows me to be able to apply for the grant for them and then receive some money back through excess cost.
Okay.
So that's provided opportunities in some of these things that we're looking at that we weren't able to provide before.
Is that shown in the budget book in the grants section? Or where would we see that if we wanted to look at it?
So you would see some of that we have in there for the grants. Other places you'll see kind of notes in the budget where we'll say a revenue applied from grants.
Got it.
So you might see that in private tuition. You might see that in transportation. Those are the places. So it's not, it's not kind of specific in there, but we make a little note that expected revenue would be applied into those.
But the reason why I asked the question, people that might be looking at me, I'm familiar with how that looks, but people might look at it and say, well, where does it say that on special ed? It doesn't really say it like that. It's spread out across various, points in the book, basically.
Yeah. And once again, it's the classic, the timing, we build this budget, January to get it ultimately approved in May, but we don't even know how much the state's going to give us to the following year until sometimes December of that year. So, everything is really projections that we make that we're constantly adjusting on the fly.
Last question. I know you increased, was there a summer school? Was there a summer school increase for a position? Did I see that right? Or am I wrong?
Slide.
Yeah. No? All right. Never mind that. Okay. That's all I got. Thank you very much. Guys.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Brian.
Dave?
Yeah, my question is on page 2 under basically the account for principals. Obviously, I want to focus on an additional one FTEs being requested for secondary supervisor of special services. I'm assuming the next page is this, right? Which is kind of gives you all the schools. It gives you the numbers that are basically the preliminary professional staffing. So I'm assuming that this secondary supervisor of special services is under the special education line. Would that be accurate? So there's 64 professional staffing positions under special education, which is now 70. It was 64 in 2020. It's 70 in 26-27. Is that correct?
Okay. I see what you're saying. I was looking at that. So let me just.
Yeah, page 4 now. I was on 2. Now on page 4 because page 3 was intentionally left blank.
Yeah. Page 15 would be a better view.
Page 15 is a
Yeah.
better view. Okay. Okay.
So that's where we do it by category.
Administrators.
Huh? Yeah.
Administrators are typically on
Page 4
Page
for
4.
like certified. You can see staff. So it's on 15 this year.
We're on. You're pointing me to 15, right?
15.
Yeah, 1-5.
15.
So just to clarify, page 4 really focuses more on like the certified staff, the teachers on there.
Okay.
This position is really considered more of an administrative position. It's considered an administrative position. So if you see on page 15, that's where we do the staffing by category.
Okay.
So you can see that first one that maybe a punch hole got through it, district administration.
So then the person the FTE that we're asking that is in this budget is secondary supervisor of special services. Where does that plug in?
I believe it would be principals and directors, correct? Yeah.
Okay, principals and directors. So, which is fine. So I guess at that point, is now in that category of special, supervisor of special services, is that breaking the
is there two people there now, or one person's getting a person? Like how is this somewhat coming together?
Currently, for all of the supervision for special services, there's myself
Right.
and there's one secondary supervisor.
Okay.
I mean, there's one supervisor, one special services supervisor.
Okay.
So what we would be doing is then delineating the district between splitting that coverage in half to having a elementary supervisor and then a secondary supervisor.
Oh, okay. So there will be an elementary supervisor that's just taking care of the elementary schools, and then this person is taking care of everything else.
Would be the secondary, and then there are other supports and services
Right.
that are required for my supervision, which would cover the schools and better supports for both the staff, administrators, and responsiveness to the families and the children, of course.
Okay. And are we in back to this page 16 where you're reallocating some units district wide, you're going down 7.4. Does this all balance out plus or minus? I mean, just through your administrative side of things.
Overall, it's not 100% cost neutral, but much of it has been, offset by reductions of, whether it's paraprofessionals, there's a nurse clerk, the reduction of the elementary teachers due to lower classes at the elementary level. So, but it's not, if you took the position that we're adding, position you're taking away, it's not 100%.
It's not 100% level, but
what it gets pretty close. And once you also then apply the additional projected revenue from grants from like excess costs, it gets pretty close.
got it. Okay. And then the only other thing would be somewhere else I saw the nurse's contract is up for negotiation, and that's in process right now.
Correct. That's probably April, May.
Got it. Okay. Thanks. That's my question for now.
And I would just say it's fair to probably mention over time, it would give us 2 supervisors, but we're somewhat projecting out based on who we'd like to attract to the position. Over time, that could change. You could have people move. The idea is that we'd have 2 supervisors. The secondary piece is a skills-based right now, but over time that could shift, and you could see an elementary supervisor posted 2 or 3 years down the road because that's where the need is for that position.
I see.
That makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Nadine?
Yes, hello. So back to the reductions here. So are any of these teachers potentially being able to be redeployed into any of these positions for getting reskilled or?
Good question. So that's been a lot of our conversation the last few weeks because of course our goal is to try to not lose any of our staff. A lot of time and resources go into coaching these people up and getting them prepared to meet the standards of the Farmington Public Schools. But at this time where we sit today, there's 4 individuals that would be impacted by those reductions. We do not currently have a place for them. As Dan always reminds me, everything changes, and between now and August, we'll see a lot of movement. So we've kept them apprised of, the work that we're doing. If nothing changed between today and, August, we would, and actually we're responsible for letting them know that they would be a non-renewal as of May 1st. So Connecticut state statute is clear that we have to inform them by that date. So if nothing changed between today and then, they would technically be non-renewed, but they would have, we would continue to see what happens with staffing. And then they actually, as a teacher who's been non-renewed, have recall rights for 2 years to come back to the district.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then my second question on the +2, maybe that's plus 0.2. On the business teacher, what specific programming or enhancement to the programming are they teaching for business? And is that a request or?
Yeah, so that is, again, this is back to Bill's question about what that's with current staffing that we have. So it's somebody that right now is a 0.6 would be able to become a 0.8. And it's an area where the state has put in a requirement of personal finance. And so by trying to staff the personal finance, it did mean that some of the other elective courses weren't able to run because that requirement was put in. But on top of that, we've been engaged in a program review really looking at what are some of the courses. It's a very popular sort of strand in our programming, and so we've been looking at some other kinds of classes, including an AP business class and all those kinds of things. So it represents responding to a requirement, but also adding some programming in an area that is popular, and we've had to turn students away.
Great. Glad we're getting back to the basics. How to balance a checkbook and save money.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce?
All right. I have an emotional problem. I come from a different generation, and I'm not steeped in some of this like my colleagues are. And I know I read our budget, and it is my perception that many of the ills of society are being thrust on our schools, and you guys have to cope with that like you never have before. But when I hear things like, we have the same size student body, but they're needing ever more services every year, that alarms me. And it alarms me because I think that, where is that line where we have to, it's better for us to do these things, or where should we push back? An example, like we need 3 physical therapists across 7 schools. What are they doing? Why do we have to provide that in the schools? Is that not something that should be done at home by others? Why is that, on us and the rest of the taxpayer? So I have a different perspective on that. I'm prepared to be educated, so I hope that you can share some reasons now.
Sure. All the ills of society, I certainly couldn't speak to, but what I do know is that I think all educators see our role and responsibility as when they show up in the morning at 8 a.m. at the door, they're our responsibility until 3:30 when they walk out that door. And so our staffing requests, the programs we run are all in service to our students and meeting their needs during the school day. We certainly work closely with families. And so as we're seeing students, as Wendy referenced, with these complex needs who are coming in, we also are well aware, and I want to make sure that this is clear too, some of those complex needs cannot be met within the entirety of a school day. So these are students who are often receiving specialized supports outside of the school day. Some of them have extended days that go on long beyond 3 o'clock after hours and on the weekends and all summer long as well. Needs like OT, physical therapy, those are all driven by IEPs. And so our school team meets with families and based on testing that takes place, needs emerge for students. Some of those are academic, and some of those are tied to something physical, like an occupation or physical therapy. And by law, through the agreement of that IEP, we're responsible to provide those services. And it has, it's a good observation. It has expanded tremendously, and that's part of our rationale for these requests this afternoon.
And I was going to say, and I was just going to add, just not to overly editorialize without kind of judgment. Many of these services, OT, PT, are things, as Jess was saying, through the IDEA and federal statutes that schools, it's been determined that schools are required to provide. So these aren't things that we think are kind of nice. These are things that the courts over the years, and there have been probably school districts who've challenged and said, we don't think we should be providing, either OT, PD, and through court cases and more legislation and, both federal and state, statutes, that it has been determined that these are services that we are expected to provide for our students.
So I have to geek out a little bit and answer your question because I'm an advocate, right? It's a really good question. And your point about so aren't those clinical services? They seem very medical. There's a difference. So IDEA is one law, but the overarching law right, is really the American with Disabilities Act. And we all fall under that. And it's about access to school. So when you talk about these services for children, is the disability impacting their ability to access their education? So for your physical therapist, right, it wouldn't be clinical services where they're really trying to rehabilitate the student, but the job of the physical therapist within the school building would be, what do we need to do to support the child to make sure that they're able to engage in recess like everybody else to their maximum extent? How do we get them to class so the physical disability isn't impacting that? And if you take that on every service lens, it's equivalent to say, like, making sure that there's a ramp so people can access the building. It's making sure those services are in place so the children can access their education. The increase that we see is puzzling to all of us, but really you can equate that to just the advancements in the medical sciences. One of the biggest increasing populations within special education is really our students that are coming to us with disabilities that are diagnosed before they even enter school. It's called the birth to 3. And then we are obligated to provide them an IEP by the age of 3. Because the medical sciences have advanced, we have children that we've never seen before coming to us that we are obligated to provide medical services for, like G-tube feedings, tracheotomies, asthma. That is all something that, because we are obligated to make sure they can access school, we have to make sure we have the services available for them to be able to do that. So that's the need.
And just sorry, piggyback, like one more kind of an example, just the changing thing for probably up until, you can help me fact check this, up to, a few years back, we were responsible for children up from to 21 years of age, right?
This is the last 3 years.
And then within the last 3 years, it was federal, state, federal, right?
It's federal.
Federal has changed it now that we're responsible for the students to up to 22.
So, well, it was all of federal, and then Connecticut was not aligned with the rest of what the United States was doing. And then Connecticut came back and changed the law. And so we've extended up through the age of 22 now. We are obligated to support our students.
So that's just an additional year of students, that we need to support through, programming, IEPs, and so on.
Well, thank you, team. I feel like I understand it a lot better now. Thank you for sharing all of that with me. I have a couple of specific questions on a couple of line items. With respect to the subs, we have a 25.62 percentage is a big percentage increase, and I see the some of the rationale there. Can you break down that increase in terms of the contributing factors? How much of that is really per diem driven, and how much is driven by other factors?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And that one's really more, once again, I want to kind of refer to like a little bit of just accounting practices. So I'm going to go back a little bit to our teacher salary. What we do is we start off by saying, okay, if we had all of our teachers at this point in time and we roll them over and here's their salaries and this would be that number. But we recognize that, teachers through, FMLA leaves or, it takes other types of absences or things may lose some time. And so it rarely is it where everyone's there all 180 days and they make their full salary. So what we do is we have what we call the teacher turnover equation. And we've been applying that number, which, typically is about, I think we've done about, somewhere like $250,000 in there. But then what we've seen is historically in our budget, we've always seen that our substitutes have always ran like high in the deficit, right? Because we kind of, and each year it kind of worked out. The teacher salaries would always end up like, a few $100,000 in the plus, and then the substitutes would end up, $100,000 in the red, and it kind of just balanced itself out. So through conversations with the Board of Education, they had talked about, trying for us to adjust those numbers so that they would more accurately reflect. And so for this year, we moved up the teacher turnover number to 325,000. But then with that, we increased the substitute line so it more accurately reflects. So there's really, theoretically, there's really no difference in budgeting. It was just kind of shifting our projection for substitutes to more accurately reflect what actually happens, and us adjusting the teacher salary to more accurately reflect what happens.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. On And with respect to the paraprofessionals, the I mean, it's a very tiny increase, but I was reading the account goal, like to provide instructional support services to student with respect to academic programs, and this includes providing intervention services. There's so much jargon in there. I don't really understand what you're doing. Can you kind of maybe explain it in English, please?
So we're not increasing paraprofessionals, but the supports that we are increasing are to be able to give more guidance to our staff for these students with their more complex needs. So we'll go back to your original question, right? Like the occupational therapist. That's the increase. We're increasing that occupational therapy. We need that because our students who need to access school and supports and services, they need those services in order to be able to do things like write, track, take notes, listen, even regulate their bodies and be able to attend for learning. So all of the supports and services that we are asking for the request for are in those specialized areas. So speech and language, occupational therapy, nursing, school psychologist, that's all there. Wherever that special discipline is, we've seen the increase in the needs for that. The requests for the increase in administration are simply because with the expanding needs of the complexity of these students, we have more of our students that are in highly specialized programs, and our building administrators are taxed because those children you'll have to plan for and meet for multiple PPTs. So we do over 1,500 PPTs a year, and each of just the elementary school buildings is 140 PPTs, 150 PPTs alone. By adding the extra leverage and support for specialized administration, we'll be able to take that pressure off of the building principals and get them back into the classrooms and managing their building and not managing these increased needs around special services. So that's kind of the gist of the restructuring that we're trying to do.
Great. Understand that very well. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm all set. And thank you all of you for putting up with my questions and on the hard work. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask a real quick.
Sure. Go ahead, Nathan.
Just generally, I think being that we've been on the board in the past, I think one of the important things around this is some of these services, folks, we have to go externally. These services, we would go outside. So if we bring these services in, and obviously going externally, the services are obviously more expensive, twice as much. So I think that's something we need to note, that while it's increasing people and bodies, I think knowing that if we had to have resources outside and it would come back into our budget, it would be a lot more expensive. Just want to maybe note that.
That's a really,
I was
really
gonna say,
important point.
And some of this you'll shift, and I don't know if you have the non-certified, you'll see there like the occupational therapist assistant and the occupational therapy. And this piggybacking from what we did last year on the budget was, these were services that we had been kind of, outsourcing, going to, outside services for it. And, once again, to reduce costs, right? Because however, because of the increase at it, that we've recognized that now there is enough of a need for us to hire our own person, which also brings quality of service. We had it where sometimes you'd have an OT provide service for a student, but then they wouldn't be at one of the PPT meetings because, the consistency there. And so for those, when you see offset by 320 account, you'll see a comparable reduction in the 320 account to pay for those. So those ones, once again, where we're working really hard to make sure that we're not just adding, we're offsetting.
And continuity as well, I guess. If you're
And
not cycling through a different outside
continuity,
professional.
institutional knowledge, knowing the students, building relationships. So for really the same amount and hopefully even potentially some savings, the increased quality of care and quality of support for the students, we think is going to be significant.
Makes sense.
All right, Bill and Keith.
I'm covered.
I was going to ask about the psychologist. That's part of that's another access learning thing that's going to be in somebody's IEP to meet with the psychologists. Is that correct?
Typically, it could be psychologists. A large part of their role is really become on testing, and doing a lot of the testing. And so, once again, with the increased needs in there, so there are some support services that they provide, but you'll see a large part of their job is really being taken up.
So it's not. again, I'm not always the smartest person, so it's not like we're sending people for talk therapy on a regular basis. This is like we're doing, we're figuring out what kids need, some special services as opposed to finding out somebody else. We're bringing them in house, and it's been cheaper. Yes.
Yes. And with the increased needs for the students, those testing needs are increasing. So if you want quality services and you want to make sure, like also as just part of maintaining our students here in district, you want to make sure that you have all the services available. So mental health and counseling is a huge need right now. Yeah. So if our school psychologists, if we're so lean in how we've staffed them in the district that all they can do is testing and they're not able to support the children that crop up with mental health needs or are mandated in their IEP, then we are at risk of losing them to out of district placements that can better support them. So there's multiple reasons there and needs that it suits a district to be forward thinking, to be able to support those needs proactively rather than reactively.
I guess my only question on the follow up on some of this stuff, because in general, I think more support is great, is if we're saying that the students with needs is about the same, but the needs are greater, it's what triggers on the next budget cycle, more support. Is it, do we track, what is it? 504? Is that 504 is the plan? I forget what the meeting is called, but everybody gets a meeting. PPT. Thank you. Too many acronyms. But so is it like we track how many PPTs there are, and once we hit a threshold, we know that somebody in the building needs support, or is it like it's just where we can fit it in, we fit it in?
So it's really the plans. So you're talking about two plans.
Yeah.
Under IDEA, the students have IEPs.
Yeah.
And on their IEPs, each service provider is mandated a certain number of hours that they need to see the students.
Yeah.
So we look at our staffing across the board, and we're making sure that the hours that need to be promised within the IEP, our providers are able to provide. In 504 plans, it's the same, but mostly on the counseling, much of the related services, but that would be the same. So tracking both of those plans, knowing if your staff can meet the needs, tracking caseloads, how time is being allocated, and then that's how we're able to figure out, if we're able to do that. I'll say the increase, so a specific example of that is the increase in the request for the speech and language pathologist. We are very, very tight. And so if there are any additional students that need speech and language, we would run the risk of not being able to meet those mandated requirements, and that puts us in jeopardy. We're obligated to make sure we're meeting the needs.
And on something like speech and language pathology, our person is going to run that assessment and then determine if they have needs, or they're going to go out, or if the parent comes in and says, I have a note from a doctor, I now get is it a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both. Sometimes you get parents that come in with notes or come in with evaluations, but always at the end of the day, we're taking that outside information and we are evaluating it among our own providers and making a decision of where we need to go with that.
I definitely appreciate the thought that goes into it, and I think more support for students with needs. There are, more dramatic needs and behaviors and stuff like that. So I appreciate it. That's it for me.
Billy,
well, two quick ones. I know when you do the budgeting, when you're trying to predict ECS, you try to, you have a sense of what it costs at 100% reimbursement, and you kind of try to, tailor what you think we're going to get. What number did you use this year? What percentage reimbursement?
Yeah, I think we did right.
Okay, that's actually a very conservative number. That's a very conservative number. Okay, that's great. Okay. And the other question was more of just a practical. Last year, we were talking about being a pilot program at the high school, Community Health Partners. How's that going?
It's going very well. It was going so well that we were getting outcry from our middle school families, and asking us to pilot a program down at the middle school. And so we're making arrangements to do that. And that is a partnership that is mental health support, but of no cost to us. Right. We're just giving space for that agency to come and help support students and families that need it and are opting for it.
It's just awesome. Clear. Yeah, the school district has gone out of its way to provide a support, supplemental mental health services with a reputable healthcare partner at no additional cost to the taxpayers. So well done. Awesome. I'm really glad to hear that.
Patty, did you have a follow-up? Or are you good?
I did, and then I forgot it. So
Okay.
that should be.
Sorry if I put you on the spot.
No, that's all right. I'm sure if it comes up, I can ask.
Are we
in the
ready
next
to
one.
move on to the 200
I
series?
think so.
Yes.
Actually, I remember.
You want to hit it?
Yes.
Um,
So, you remembered your question.
I did. I remember.
Okay.
I know Veronica in Board of Ed meetings before, so I don't know who's the right person. We have a fair number of students who have English learning language needs. What's that population looking like, and how's that impacting our needs for staff?
We actually have been seeing in the past a really increasing trend. And now I would say it's like flat and actually has gone down a little bit in terms of the number. So we feel very well staffed in that area at this point. So that's why you don't see any recommendation for us to increase in that area. So yeah, we feel good in that area.
All right, thank you.
All right, so the 200 series is our employee health benefits line, and the 200 series accounts for 15% of the overall budget requests. It covers 100% of expected paid claims, administrative costs, and employee life insurance. And you'll see a 9.59% increase, which is driven by trends in the market. And then we have One Digital, which is our insurance broker, and they meet with us annually to make recommendations about what we would need to respond to how the market is trending. Questions about the 200 series?
Okay, I'll start the other end. Are there any questions, Bruce? Do you have any questions on the 200 series?
Yes, just one in the retirement area. Is this a defined contribution plan? And is the allotments here, is this for a match or something? Or the custodial costs, record keeping costs?
No.
What are we looking at?
Sure. So the retirement contribution are employees through, collective bargaining contracts who after, upon retirement may be eligible for, for lack of better words, to cash in from either unused sick days or time or various things based on, once again, negotiated contracts.
Yeah,
So we allocate numbers based on either we give, I think it's February 1st is when we, put kind of a deadline for retirement notices. And so we allocate a certain amount of money to pay out those benefits.
Got it. So why are we looking at a decline?
Just from projected, not as many expected retirements.
Okay,
this year.
Actuarial kind of things.
Yes.
Okay.
So just not as many anticipated, retirements from there.
Understood. Thank you. All set.
Need anything?
Nope.
Dave?
No, I don't. It's pretty straightforward.
No.
Bill?
No, I just, again, the slide highlights that, and Joe's here, he should be recognized for it as well. I mean, this is a really, an example for the state of collaboration between, a town and a Board of Ed in terms of how they can minimize, the financial obligation of paying benefits to town employees, taxpayers. So, something that should be recognized.
Just a quick comment. If you the two trends across the state this year have been in employee benefits and student services. I mean, so when you think about those 9.59% felt what's the best word I could say for it? Felt fair compared to the market this year based on what many communities across the state were realizing. I know from speaking to colleagues, there's districts, I was just on a call this morning, a district looking at a 30% increase in healthcare costs. So by comparison, we did quite well.
Many of our colleagues are jealous of this number, right? They're like, how did you get it that low? So we know sometimes just seeing it on paper kind of has a, this number, but relative to, other districts and, other communities, this is actually, a pretty desirable number.
Any questions?
I think we're good. Want to move on to the 300 series?
Sure. So services is the next budget driver, which is roughly 16% of the total budget requests and includes an overall increase of 1.28%. And this account reflects obligations for transportation contracts, electricity contracts, special services consultation, and tuition costs for our outplaced students. It also is where you'll find major projects, summer school programming, professional development costs, and technology software systems.
And I just want to highlight, as we talked before, look like on page 29, you'll see there the reduction of about $254,000. And then on page 30, so let me make sure I have the other one on it, was page 34, you'll see another reduction of 124,000. Those are the savings that we actualized to be able to help offset with the OT and we call it the CODA, the Certified Occupational Therapy Assistant, for this. So just to kind of, once again, where the balancing of it, where you might see some increases in salary, now you're seeing some decreases here to offset those.
All right. Anything else before we open it up for questions? We're good? Keith, you want to?
I'm all set here too. Thank you.
Just a general question. I know the summer school account was kind of squirrely over the last couple of years. We reduced. We were a number 2 years ago. We reduced last year. Now you're kind of going back up. Is there a programming changing or programming shift of the summer school, or is it just student new? I'm just curious.
There's a couple,
On page
there's
25.
a couple ESY programs.
Yeah, it's really a collaboration between regular education and special
Okay.
education. And so
Got it.
there's some real mandated services in there. And then other than that, there are students who are invited in general, for more like tier 2, tier 3 kind of a support.
I'm just curious. So thanks.
Patty? At the moment?
No, I just don't remember what page it was on. Technology renewals and the costs. I know they go up every year. I mean, this is a crystal ball type question, but so I think it was this line where maybe it was a different series where you eliminating some different series. 600. Okay.
600 series is where there's a realignment.
Okay.
And I try to keep things. I use the term portfolio more than anything and keep things that are alike together. And so I did some realignment. So there's an increase in one. There is an increase in 650 and a decrease in. It's a transfer of about $25,000.
Okay.
But that's in the 600 series. 600. I don't know. But yes, there was a shift, and those two particular accounts deal more with the operating software, and then the other with network security.
Yeah. 617, page 73, if you want to.
And then also I found the other one, page 35, object 351.
351.
Yes.
So 351 is our core data systems, and that's where we have things like Power School, our financial system. All of those, we continue to see somewhere in the range of 5 to 7% increases on an annual basis.
Okay.
Some of them, we will do multi-year agreements to lock in an increased rate. Power School is an example of a 3-year agreement, but locked in post-COVID at 5% per year.
Okay.
So right now with Power School, the state is looking at a potential consortium. I can't guarantee you that it's going to get us any better of a rate at this point because they kind of have the market corner. But I've seen all of these go up, and especially post-COVID. There were a lot of increases that all the way up to 8% in some cases. There was some mitigations in terms of retirement of some systems, and so the overall increase in 351 has been minimized, but we still see significant annual increases with our core operational software.
And, you know, and the inherent challenge there is, you know, Power School, for example, and I hope there's no reps here listening to me. You know, it's not like you can just go out and get a new student information system. You know, it has all the historical knowledge in there. And so to identify a new student information system, you know, first you want to make sure you do your research, and it's, you know, very similar kind of going through a bus company, right? Like you can't just say, okay, tomorrow you want a new bus company, right? Like you have to like organize and do all those things. And so then you'd have to figure out, you know, you'd have to spend time like migrating and making sure all your data goes from the old system to the new system and carries over there. You have all the professional development to teach all the staff and everybody how to use it. And so it's not just where, you know, okay, now it's getting too expensive, let's go shop around and get someone. It would be a multi-year process. Not to say we wouldn't, you know, that you don't always keep looking at it and you always kick the can, and sometimes you go to things and you look at, you know, various programs. And so we're always looking to see what's there, but just to make sure people understand it's not just so simple. We say, oh, if it's gotten too expensive, go find one that's cheaper, because it's just, you know, I wish it was that simple, but it's very multifaceted.
Okay, thank you. And one unrelated, Object 420. Is this where the composting fees are paid for? Because this is the, you know, Sam knows this is near and dear to my heart. So I really just want to highlight that some of our schools have implemented composting as part of our waste.
Coming to IIR, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great, thank you. That was all. I just wanted to highlight it. Oh,
Served.
Brian, can I ask one? I just don't know if it's a more appropriate place to ask it, but the summer school thing jogged my thought. The preschool program. This is maybe a terrible question. Do we make money on that, or do we lose money on that? Because I know it's like a pay to a type. I'm transparently, I'm in my like 7th year with 2 more. Or sorry, no, the Farmington Collaborative Preschool.
Sure.
Yes.
So I know that there's a tuition.
Yeah. So to be clear, and have to make sure I get it right, the preschool works off an enterprise fund, which is separate than our operating.
Okay.
So it doesn't. So it lives kind of separately in its own silo. You know, I work with Brian Zero every year. We kind of take a look. You know, typically it has generated a profit, but the goal is we try to kind of keep that where it's, you know, where we're, you know, almost like a nonprofit where it's trying to blend out at zero.
It's a great service, and I think so. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's great that it's profitable as well. I mean, is that the goal is to make it neutral, or the goal is to make
to make it kind of like, you know, have it maybe just a little bit above to make sure that it's not, you know, that we don't have to pay for any deficit anywhere, so that it sustains itself. And we try to mirror it to kind of like the board policy with like the health insurance reserve. You try to keep about, I think it's about 25% of, you know, what it would cost to run the program, you know, to have the 3 or 4 months operating expense to, you know, in case, you know,
COVID,
I mean,
COVID was the one.
It's funny, 6 years later, we're still saying COVID, but you know, that kind of have a reserve in there in case for any other situations in there. So Brian will continually look and say, okay, do we keep, you know, and for the most part, they've been able to keep the tuition pretty flat, you know, over the years and things. So
yeah, and is that similar to the thought process to running Excel, like the after school programs?
Yes, same model, same enterprise account. You know, and that's in the other part too, is when they do have a little bit of money, sometimes, you know, if you know, West District needs a little bit of, you know, extra mulch at the playground or something like that, sometimes we'll say, hey, Brian, you know, your Excel and preschool uses this thing. And so they'll pay for some of that to kind of help out sometimes. So
yeah, they're good programs. So and my last question would be, because I know that they, to get in, it's hard to get into lots of preschools. Anybody that's got a good preschool, it's hard to get in there. But so it's done by a lottery. And I know it's 3 times we were like biting our nails to get, you know. But so if a student with special services wins that lottery, right, then we open up to help, you know.
Yeah, I want to hand it to Wendy because it's a little more complicated than that.
Okay.
It's a different process.
Okay.
So a preschool student, if they have special needs, we're obligated to provide the services that are mandated in their IEP. Those special needs might be speech and language services and not be needed all day. We would provide those services. If they require services that require like a full day program, we would partner with Brian to provide those services. If they want services that are outside of their IEP and more, then they would have to enter the lottery for that.
Gotcha.
So it just, it's nuanced depending on the needs of the child.
Okay.
So you might hear the term collaborative preschool, which would be those preschool classes that are serving the needs of our students.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yep. And then you'll see, but you will see too, we do have classrooms full of students who have won the lottery. I guess we don't actually call it a lottery.
Yeah, that's the way it feels.
It's the
but yes,
randomization
just-
process.
Yeah.
Yes.
I gotcha.
And just, you know, while we're speaking of preschool, that is actually the one area we, on a regular basis, get a request from the community. To your point about how competitive it is, we just don't have the space to open additional classrooms, but we could easily fill additional preschool classrooms if we had the space.
Yeah, and I think just for what it's worth, I mean, the program is run well, and the transition to Westwoods has gone well, and there's a nice playground there now, and they're doing a good job. So,
Yeah, and I was gonna say that's a perfect example. That
Oh, it
place,
came out of that
playscape at Westwoods that was put in there was used through the enterprise funds from there. So there wasn't any, operating budget that was used to pay for that program.
poor Brian Zario, they were like 2 days late on that for the first day of school. He was, but he got it done.
So a quick question I had was on professional education services. Obviously, that's gone down, right? And part of that is the decrease due to the shifting of the funding. And is that then tied to your kind of certified staffing overview as far as what has occurred there?
Yeah.
I'm assuming there, you have to contract with consultants to provide some of this stuff, but now you don't.
Yeah, so exactly. So when we talked about in the salary lines, and you once again saw the OT and the CODA and those positions, to pay for that was decreasing our need for consultation services and contracting out with them. There probably may be some times where we'll still need to utilize, those services, but obviously it'll decrease tremendously by having our own internal staff.
Got it. Okay. And then the other thing was on building repair contracts. And then obviously on that, a lot of the maintenance program, from 24-25, it's increased now. If you take the 26-27 request to 38-150, it's almost, it's over double. And obviously the Farmington High School coming online and warranty contracts where are we in that, Sam, as far as like the first year, a number of things dropped off. Now certain equipment has longer, vantage points. So
that's exactly why we have the discrepancy. So we zeroed out all those accounts we didn't need while we were in construction. In the process of moving into the building that first year, anticipated which maintenance contracts we could need to start in the first year, or what we could in the first year, which we were still under warranty, which is this year. So labor warranties are pretty much drawn after this year, so now we're looking at them on, say, a building management system contract for somebody, or a rooftop unit. This year we brought on an elevator contract, so we're looking at what is ending in terms of warranties and anticipating those contracts coming back online. The other thing to remember is we have a lot more systems at the new high school. So where we had a BMS contract 3 years ago, this is significantly more because we have a much more robust mechanical system throughout the building. So it's going to help us more.
So in the business, proprietary versus kind of a universal thing, are a lot of these systems proprietary, and then we're kind of locked in with how we have to hire consultants or maintenance contracts?
So some of that we did specify proprietary, but we sat down with the engineer, Matt and I both on the technology and the clinical sides to discuss which items we wanted to be proprietary about. A lot of it we did ask for it to be open source, but we weren't on it at the same time. The short answer is probably in the short term, when you have a contract that you've worked on a piece of equipment, installed a piece of equipment in the last 2 years and has been back to rectify issues, we'll probably stick with that vendor for a period of time. But at some point, we'll put, say, rooftop unit maintenance, we'll put it out to bid at a future time to get more competitive pricing.
Okay, yeah, I think, and then if these HVAC projects move ahead too, these other ones, then there's a whole portfolio of HVAC equipment, so.
Yeah.
Okay. You've answered my question, thank you.
Mine should be pretty simple. I just noticed under for IAR, there's acoustic panels for the art room for $32,000. Like, for what purpose do we need acoustic sound in the art room?
Those are sound
it's-
dampening, right?
Yeah.
Acoustic panels.
Just
It's open ceiling. And you have metal, you have a metal roof structure above you, so sound does echo throughout. It's pretty loud. So this project would, it's visually appealing as well, but it really is about trying to soften the sound for teaching and learning in that room, so that we don't have echoes throughout.
so we've had that for a while, though, right?
Yeah, this one.
This would be new, but
we did replace acoustic panels.
So we've had acoustic panels in the past, and this
in
is
other places,
Basement?
yeah, you'll find them across the district in various.
But just in that school, I'm just asking, is this something new, or is this being replaced?
In this room that we're budgeting for, this is new.
Okay.
But we have, in major projects over the last couple of years, we'll have one more set. Last year's set was a replacement because they were 25 years old and feeling like the ceiling, so we in this part of the building, they haven't had.
But this one's a part of a phased project, right? Like we've already replaced a few, a couple classrooms, and I think after we budget for this one, we have one more. So part of kind of like a major projects kind of. It's
Just kind of phased in. And then, like, in terms of painting, like, do you outsource the painting? I see, like, there's painting in classrooms and stairwells for like $30,000.
Typically, we'll do smaller projects throughout the summer. What this is a larger project that all the stairwells,
All the
stairwells.
And then my last and final question, because it's my favorite, is the buses. So I see a little 3.4%, 1%. Is this our final year in this contract, and we're renegotiating for?
I think this is
this our
we're in year 2 of 5.
2 of 5. So
2
this
of 5.
we're going up. All right, thought we were renegotiating already. Felt like we just.
I thought we were actually the contract. Yeah. So the contract's actually a 5-year increase each year. So we're actually below.
We're in year 3 of the 5-year.
This will be year 3 of the. But so what we've been able to do is, we've been able to save a little bit in regular transportation. We've been able to work with specialty to find some efficiencies on some fewer runs than that need to occur. That kind of need to occur to kind of meet all the needs. So we've been able to save there. Where we've seen some additional money is once again special services. I know she was giving that look when I have to point out.
I'm like, okay, so the increase is due to special service needs.
Having said that, you'll see we do apply revenue because sometimes that specialized transportation will qualify for excess costs, and then we will offset some of the transportation costs. So, there's one line for transportation, but it really kind of has 2 lines in it: the regular transportation and the specialized transportation. The regular transportation, you see a good decrease. Sorry, Wendy. And then as for the specialized transportation, you'll see the kind of the, but we were able to keep it below the 5%, which would have been the contract. So we feel pretty good about that.
And we haven't been able to do any rideshare with like Avon or special.
We have some. I know
it's difficult with.
We keep looking for other opportunities, but once again, it is a lot of different students, different times,
Okay.
in there. But we continue to look for those types of efficiencies.
Great, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Just one quick one. I understand we talked about our IT expenses increasing, but commensurate with that, we should be seeing additional services from them. They're enhancing their products. Are we seeing, productivity gains and tools or AI tools? And, what do you see coming in the future?
Yep, we do see improvements. Specifically around PowerSchool, they've acquired a lot of other companies as well, so they've added services. That's part of their justification to their increases. And a lot, a lot of this comes down to the contractual, and some of these being a lot of our core services. As Dan pointed out, it's hard to move away completely or quickly from these. But across the board, we also do regular reviews. Big systems like the finance system and Power School, we're constantly trying to get better rates of increase. Some of our smaller systems right now, we're doing an extensive review of our HR onboarding time clock and we'll call it record system. That is basically the forms that you fill out to see if we can find any savings and also get some efficiencies and in terms of the process itself. But in general, the biggest increases that we see are on our core systems.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, Patty.
At 622 electricity, at the bottom it says it's a supply purchase agreement taking effect December 1, 2024. Since it's a 1-year contract, and I'm just trying to understand. On page 65.
Oh, so yeah, that was the purchasing agreement that we have to kind of lock in the rates for electricity. So that Sam has.
That's also good.
Yes.
All right. So it says, when it says it says to lock in a full year of the new agreement. So it's being locked in for 3 years, or am I?
Well, this is the third year of that locked in rate.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
You understand what I'm asking? Thank you.
So if the end date on that was in December. So I apologize, that wasn't ended for this year. So for last year when we presented this, we had a half a year of the old rate and a half a year of the new rate. So this year it's a full year.
So should that have been 25, 12, 120?
It's still the year of the agreement.
Okay, so that's the year of the agreement, and yeah, thank you. It's a really good rate. Okay.
It is. Eversource just added on another cost on the supply side. No discrepancy.
Okay. Is that accounted for in this? Okay. Thank you.
Anything else before we move on to the 400 series? Right.
So the 400 series is our supplies, accounts for roughly 3% of the overall budget request. The 2.42% recommended increase that covers all of our instructional materials necessary to support the curriculum, as well as supplies utilized by our maintenance and custodial staff. And finally, this is the account that covers facility rentals for programs like swimming and ice hockey. The 400 series.
Do you have any questions, Keith?
I do not.
Bill? Nope. Patty?
Yes. Page 76, item 641, the math text, the curriculum. Is this we started at the elementaries and now we're up to the it started with the younger kids, right? Brought it up.
The Think.
Yeah, so that's for Think Math in their just workbooks that we need every year, but that program is complete all the way through grade 5, and we're actually going to be in a program review to look at what we want to do for grades 6, 7, and 8 really next year. But right now, that's just to sort of replenish the materials that we need. And I don't think it has, we also have an online platform. Is that in technology or is that in this one? That's in technology.
The increases to account for the cost of the potential, the projected cost of adding grade levels.
Thank you. Nothing else.
I'm good.
Nadine?
I'm good, thank you.
Bruce, anything?
No, I'm good.
All right, shall we move on to 500?
All right, yep. 500 series is our equipment. Represents roughly 1% of our overall budget requests. This is provides for facility and technology equipment requests And the 16.6% increase is driven by the rising costs of technology hardware such as Chromebooks, which are part of our life cycle management process. Questions for the 500 series?
So usually Wendy's the one we blame. This time it's all on Matt.
Right.
So
Yeah,
Wendy's
yeah,
off the hook for this one.
Right, when you can take a break.
All right, why don't we start down with you, Bruce, if you have anything?
I'd like to understand the whole Chromebook thing more in terms of who we're providing them to, and what our costs per unit are, and what's driving that budget item.
Sure. So our Chromebook program is a one-to-one Chromebook program in grades 3 through 12. Those students bring their Chromebooks home with them so that it can help facilitate learning at home as well. In grades K through 2, we have devices and carts in the classroom, so they do not take them home. Maybe grade 2 every once in a while if there's a special project, but in general they stay in the classroom to support learning in the classroom. We still have the number of devices in that cart corresponding to the number of students in the classroom. We also maintain a stock of spares for swaps, for repairs, break fix supply. The biggest driver at this refresh. We refresh Chromebooks. Sorry, I forgot to refresh. We refresh Chromebooks at the end of grade 8, so students entering their 9th grade year have a new device to carry them through high school. We do the same thing. We used to do it at grade 5. When we switched to the cart model at grades K through 2, we shift a little bit to grade 3, and then there's like a grade 5, 6, depending on where we are in terms of the model of the Chromebook and what may have presented problems. Because every year, manufacturers are releasing a new model of device. So there's a little bit of a wiggle room there in that grade 5, grade 6, grade 3, and we also have to continue to every year replace devices at the K through 2 level as well. So on average, somewhere in the neighborhood of 900 to 1,000 Chromebooks purchased each year to replace those that are aging out and keep a stock on hand for repairs. Unfortunately, we've seen a huge increase in the cost of Chromebooks. Just between last year and this year, the cost has gone from it was $288 is what I spent on an individual device last year. Then you have to add on a management license, the case to protect it, and there's a little bit of a service fee. We use a company that assists us in preparing the device, enrolling it. In some cases, because we don't have the space to receive them and do that on our own, they also take care of the disposal of all the boxes. It's a nominal fee for that. But the cost of the device alone last year at this time was $288. I just received a quote to purchase what we need at the end of this year, and it's $371 for the device. The costs are at this point. Costs of Chromebooks are driven by what's driving is the same thing that's driving any other product with a computer chip in it or runs on memory. It's the market. We're seeing this across the board with any technology device. The chip costs, manufacturing of those devices has gone through the roof. We have there's times where I've tried to get quotes for units and there's a limit. Now Dell is only offering quotes for 2 weeks. They'll only offer for 2 weeks based on what their supply is. So the increase that you see was what I projected back in December, November. It's obviously more. I mean, the reality is it's more based on the numbers I have today. But I go with what I think it's going to be, and then I work with the number at that point to do what we can. We do all of our repairs in-house. I work with a company out of Indiana. They buy our parts from them. At the end of the year, after we've collected things back, we go through all of the collect backs. We grade them ourselves to determine is it repairing it ourselves, putting it back on the shelf, or is it not? Anything that we're not repairing that still has some value, we package up, we ship back to them, and they'll give us anywhere from $1 to $5 per device that I then take as credit because they give me an additional 10%, and I use it to buy parts from them to continue to repair.
Thank you. That's helpful. Appreciate it.
Maybe.
I love Chromebooks. No, just real quick, Matt, is there any other device brand outside of Chromebook? And why I mean, I know Chromebook because like Dell or Microsoft, like
Chromebook is a general term. Chromebook is like tissue, and you can get multiple companies make tissues. The Dell makes Chromebooks, HP makes Chromebooks. It's been based on the Chrome OS developed by Google. There are other devices that other districts might choose to use, iPads, straight up laptops, Windows laptops, Apple laptops. Those devices are more expensive, number one, harder to manage. And laptops in particular, laptops and iPads, I'd say, are more prone to damage. They're not built as rugged as.
So we're using the most effective one.
Like we've standardized on the Dell model Chromebook.
That's the Dell.
Of ruggedness. We've played around over a number of years with other models, other manufacturers, and they just don't hold up to our students.
It was more my question of like, are we using other brand, or looked at other brands from a cost perspective?
And there's a constant chatter across the state, the technology around the tech directors around, hey, what are people buying this year? What have you looked at? What stands up to, for a number of years, there was an issue with kids popping the keys off the keyboard. And, what are people looking at for models that are, make it more difficult for the students to do that?
Right.
And so the Dell models that we have settled on are much more rugged and stand up to those things.
And are other school districts still providing them for every student? Because I know students probably have a reason here for testing and whatnot, but students probably have other.
I was about to just say.
Yeah, I mean, it's done for testing purposes, but most students probably have, especially in the higher grades, have their own.
Yeah, so I just wanted to remind that we have to test in grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, those, and then also 11. So really all of the grades that you're talking about are.
Because SAT, the SAT.
Right. We're also doing those online. And now the AP, everything has moved on to those. And really even K1 too, because we're talking about the DIBELS testing and all of that has now moved online. So in some ways too, though, that has saved a lot of work and time because we're not doing the constant moving the papers and all of that it's all on that. But I know that it helps you in terms of the Chrome book. You're able to do a standalone application on the outside that doesn't go out to the internet while the students are taking the testing. So.
We discovered an update yesterday that impacts the SBAC and GSS testing that's coming up. They put out a new, we'll call it a new app that students would use to access that test. That update just came out in the last couple of weeks. We pulled up the instructions, went through the Google admin, did what the instructions said, and within an hour, every student Chromebook had that new app instead of having to go and touch every single one. So the difference with laptops, for example, without some other type of expensive management system, you would have to, or even students bring their own, have to touch each individual device.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Chromebooks was one of the questions, and obviously that's been talked about completely. The other thing I just saw here was the Farmington High School on equipment. Some of the stuff there is are we just outfitting the new space as far as like, we're buying a jet tabletop scroll saw, tabletop sander. Are these things that we're adding to space that we now have that we maybe didn't have before?
A lot of that stuff is program driven, and it's in a lot of cases with the high school. There was a lot of existing equipment that was brought over and not covered under the cost of the actual project.
Right.
And so there's still the ongoing replacement of equipment.
Okay, so a piece of equipment came over. Now, as things just age out, boom, you keep on.
We're still replacing.
Okay, great. Okay, that seems pretty logical.
All right, thank you, Patty.
No, thank you.
Just quickly piggyback off Dave's. Because I know one of the things with the high school was we were going to open up back up that culinary program, and some of the like tech ed driven stuff was going to get a lot more runway for more students. Are we finding that the costs for those programs are what we expected? Are they dramatically more? Are they? Because I know that was one of the things before where supplies in that area are going to be.
I couldn't answer it specifically with any. All I know is I can say from a qualitative standpoint, like I haven't heard from Farmington High School saying, "Hey, we don't have enough to cover for our, what we budgeted for as far as either supplies, whether it's arts, technical, tech ed, culinary arts."
Okay.
So whatever we've been budgeting seems to be there. Otherwise, typically, I would imagine Russ would be coming to me and saying, "I need more money for."
Yeah.
So I haven't heard that yet. So I can give you a qualitative answer on that. That it seems to be on target.
It was one of the big sales pitch things. I just want to make sure that we're able to continue the commitment to those programs.
There too is an area where they're leveraging some grant funding. So we just reviewed a Perkins grant request for a number of items for both the tech ed area and culinary.
Okay.
To enhance the program.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, we're all set. We can move on to 600.
Okay, so finally the 600 series, which accounts for, again, just about a little less than 1% of our total budget requests. This provides for memberships of professional organizations that support staff, school, and district improvement efforts. This also includes the town of Farmington's negotiated liability, umbrella, and motor vehicle insurance for the district. You'll notice an overall reduction of 3.5%, and that is in large part thanks to savings of roughly $15,000 in insurance coverage. Questions for the 600 series?
It's our end to start. I have none.
Please. No.
No.
Anybody?
I'm good.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else that we need to discuss?
I have some general questions.
Yeah. We'll talk about
We're gonna do cap.
Yeah, let's do some capital questions.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Do you have a capital question?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's already kind of been presented, but just okay. In your, I don't have. I gotta see if I can find it. In your capital out years, Sam, you have indicated in the budget year 27-28, I think it's $1 million in structural, architectural, and then $2 million for the Union Cafe. Did I read that right?
You read $2 million for the structure.
I'm sorry. Okay, so I have backwards. Okay, my bad. All right, but you understand what I'm saying. So, okay, that's anticipated to be sought in next year's budget cycle, in a year where we are going to be reevaluating across the towns, and reevaluating, setting how we calculate. So, can you talk? I mean, I know we're really talking about this year's budget. I get it, but I'm very concerned and thought about that. So can you talk about what those things are and
So I can speak. The Union project is the one where we're currently in conceptual design right now. We're going to come up with 3 different options for what that is. The 1.2 is an estimate for kind of the mid-range option, where we'd look to extend the cafeteria and media center. We put in a 1.2 as a placeholder based on square footage. The 2 million should have been in the 28-29. I don't believe we were looking to do the 2 million for the next structural architectural project. The next structural architectural project we were looking to do was either Westwood's floors or window projects.
Okay.
Am I correct in that?
A number of years ago, there was an attack regarding capital, and some of it driven by the prior report, some of it driven by the other assessments, and we divided into these buckets. And the number that was used as an average per year was the 2 million. So that's why that placeholder is there in the out years. You see that consistent. and that 2 million could get moved around based on the project, but it's there as kind of a, hey, we're projecting on average every year $2 million in investment in structural and architectural projects.
Well, I can't remember. I was thinking about that. I was going through it because I know we talked about what could be bonded, in other words, as opposed to putting in capital. And so I guess that's the question, right? What you guys decide you want to do, then we have the conversation in that budget year indicating what, sending around, do we want to capitalize it or do we want to go bond on it, depending on the nature of the project.
Correct.
Okay.
The other thing we try to do is we look at the out years is we try and even out the capital requests throughout the years. So that's where you see a $2 million placeholder in that structure architectural. We're trying to even out the capital requests so you don't see 15 million one year and 2 million the next year. So we're trying to even it out as we go along.
And then my other question, as it relates to capital and the HVAC project, a couple of things. We heard in public comment last night that the anticipated state standard for classroom temperatures is 82 degrees. Oh, I'm sorry, no, for the ambient temperature, outdoor temperature is 82 degrees. That's not how it's being looked at, though, right? The state wants to know what in classroom temperatures are, right?
Ambient temperature
outdoor temperature.
So there's what I have seen is a range from 68 to 74 degrees talked about as a range that they would look to have for classroom
for
occupied temperatures indoors.
Okay.
That has not been instituted yet. But in the future you could see a push to have some sort of temperature range within the classroom.
So the notion of 82 degrees being some sort of defining benchmark of whether or not an air conditioner is appropriate in the eyes of the state of Connecticut, that is just comes from
the standard we're using is ASHRAE for everything we're designing. So that's we'll be well below the 82 degrees with what we're using for the standards for the air conditioning that we're putting into the classrooms. Where we'll get, if they institute something that says 82 degrees in any occupied, I'm sorry.
It's occupied space, though. So the most important thing is the key is it's not 82 degrees outside. It's 82 degrees. In other words, if we're using the number 82 degrees, it would be 82 degrees in the classroom.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. We're looking for
You could have it be 82 degrees outside.
Right.
And if, I guess it maybe be the east or the west, depending on the day, at the time of day, the west facing classrooms where you got the sun kind of coming in, it is a lot warmer in that classroom and right across the hall where now they got shade in there. And now that classroom temperature, might be 74 degrees, but then it might be 79 degrees or 80 degrees right across the hall.
Right.
So, the outdoor temperature, obviously, is there some relation to what the inside temperature could be? But it's not a standard that we would, it doesn't help when you have 22 fourth graders who just came back in from recess, a ton of heat, in a certain various classrooms.
Well, I can speak from my own children's experience at Union School. There were days, my daughter was in fourth grade and it was 100 degrees on the third floor of the classroom. So, and they had the lights out and they're all laying on the floor.
Yeah.
And that's not an uncommon occurrence at that school. Because and it kind of sounds like a weird question. You weren't here last night, Sam, but someone had raised an objection about the idea of whether or not it's the HVAC project is pursued, because the town of Farmington only has certain, very few days where it's 80 degrees outside in May and September. And I just wanted to make sure that the public that might be watching at home, that's not a real number. That's not a number. That 82 degree number is not a number that we should use for any kind of point of reference in determining whether or not the HVAC project is an appropriate and worthy investment of taxpayer funds.
It also should be noted that this year school gets out around June 16th.
I was just saying, absolutely right.
And that's, that's a good period of time of learning.
For sure. Absolutely.
We also started in August.
And then lastly, I'm not a math major. The project is $14.3 million. We get 31% back. My back of the envelope math was about, so the total cost to the taxpayer is about $9 million.
Yeah. I think somewhere, $9-10 million.
Right.
Yes.
Which is reduced from the $16 million that we thought it might have been if we paid for it ourselves 4 years ago.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Well, they were talking about using the grant, but now
we would have gone to
rate of return.
Right on.
Yes.
Right. We're still right.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that was also out.
Correct.
Thank you.
I'll just Can add, I'm sorry, just add as well, obviously air conditioning is an important part of this project, but the other part of that, and approximately half the cost, is bringing in filtered fresh air into all the buildings, which gives us air exchanges, which bring down CO2 levels within the classroom as well. So that's a significant portion of the project as well. Thank you.
Well, Sam, that was, my question. And some of that came from mandates too, like that this during after COVID, whatever the time period was. Okay. Well, I don't have a question on HVAC now. Thank you.
We're on it. Do you have a question?
No, sir.
Keith? Any questions down at this end on capital?
All set.
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, I know you talked about, were you looking at strategies of doing two at the same time? You kind of alluded to it a little bit last night.
We're still looking at that. Every once in a while I say four, and Sam and Matt give me a death stares at it. So we are looking at the options to see if we can even bring that down even more by doing multiple projects in a given year.
That's what they presented to us in terms of timelines and what they could feasibly get done. And then we've got to account, because whenever they tell us they'll be done, we've got to account for that.
And there's programming implications, some programming.
I'm sure there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah,
and,
but yes.
Unless it makes sense.
Yes.
But hopefully you're studying it, and if you rule it out, you rule it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my
Any other questions before we move on?
Not on capital.
Are there any questions before we say thank you very much?
I have one, yes.
Patty?
So we've heard comment over the past multiple meetings about the enrollment numbers. This earlier today in terms of where the push-up numbers versus the actual numbers versus the projected numbers. And that as a result, there's ultimately looking like there's excess funds right now in the budget because of the estimate for the students. And I know that by state statute in the past couple of years, boards of ed now have a non-lapsing fund account for a percentage of your budget. And I'd like to hear from you how, I think it's about $200,000 ish is projected. And I want to be clear that I understand this is projected, and you never know what's going to happen. And when we had the old building, I remember having to approve a roof replacement, like a roof repair.
Raining in the classroom.
Yes. And I'm glad we don't have to deal with that now. But I in terms of how much money is currently in the non-lapsing account, is the $200,000 about right on projected? And then do you have an idea of what the Board of Ed needs, how you would like to, what your situation would be, what your options are?
So there's two pieces of that. First is what's currently in the non-lapsing account, which was established last year. And so those accounts are put in place. We have a policy that guides that, and it's pretty clear that, that's for unanticipated expenditures, right? We look at it through the lens of like protecting the budget. And I like to say that in the absence of a non-lapsing account, what happens in any given year, you referenced a roof, being replaced. We have a boiler that goes out, but there's also other things that can come up that we weren't anticipating. We talked this evening a little bit about special education costs. We can have an unexpected outplacement costs, which can range, well over $100,000. And so we have the existing account, and then what you're referencing with the $200,000 is we had 3 teachers that we did not fill those positions, based on enrollment needs. Which again, we're always trying to do responsible budgeting, and if the need isn't there, we're not going to fill those positions. And so, where we sit today, though that money is still there in the general operating budget for the 25-26 school year. Got to get my school years right and make sure when you're talking about budgets. But, and so we would be on track if all things go according to plan and there's no roof replacements or boiler explosions to have that money remaining at the end of this school year. When you ask about the dream, really, it's less about a specific dollar amount, although we I could give you one. It's really about, again, that protecting the budget in any current year and into the future. And so what we think about is the unanticipated special education costs, right? Things that might come up. We think about staffing shifts. What we tend to do is put staff in place, and we believe we can look at that from a different lens if we know we have money in the non-lapsing account that protects us should we see major enrollment fluctuations. I spoke to a personal experience where one August we had 20 second graders move in and we needed a second grade teacher. That was not in the budget. And what's not seen when that happens is that money still comes from somewhere. So if the year that you had that happen with the roof, whatever, I don't know the exact amount of money, wasn't here, but when that comes out, what happens when we talk about protecting the budget, that money comes from things that were supposed to be in the budget to benefit our students. And so the dream would be to have that account in place that would provide that both now and in the future for the students of Farmington. We're allowed by statute to have 2% in that. And I think if we were to land somewhere closer to like even 0.5% of our operating budget, that would provide that protection, as I said, both now and into the future.
When I just want to clarify, $100,000 for outplacement. You're meaning per student, right?
Per student, correct? Yeah. So we would look at wanting that fund to cover, a couple of staff members that are unexpected changes. And why I say that is because, again, we don't believe that account every year we'll see a big windfall. We had some unique experiences over the last couple of school years. But if you add a staff member at any time, that amount, you need to account for that into the future. There's an impact on future budgets. In terms of outplacements, Wendy could probably speak to this more eloquently than I could, but a year could go by where you could have multiple outplace students who we have an unanticipated outplacement. So if we felt if there was coverage for about 2 in that account, and then when you go to that 4.5% pure pupil, it ends up to be about $93,000. How'd I do with that? Pretty good.
It's between $95 and $110,000 is the range of what you would use for an average placement for one student.
And then what our cost as a district would be about $93,000 in terms of
our 4.5 times we have to pay that out before we get any reimbursement back.
Mm-hmm. So if we accounted for 2 outplacements, 2 unanticipated staff members, again, both, in now and in the future. And then also a major project, right? That's another thing we had a conversation about. You used a roof. We talked about using examples of some of the major mechanicals that we don't currently have in capital, but at any time, if you've experienced this, this yourself, you have an item that isn't at the end of life, but it goes, and the cost to repair is just not realistic at that time. So with those 4 or 5 items in place, and then the last thing, which is harder to put a number on, is the unfunded state mandates that we frequently talk about as a public school organization, something that comes down from the state. We're hearing now as an example of something that may come down regarding homeschooling. So wanting districts to do more to monitor families that choose to homeschool their children. And, we don't know what we don't know as we sit here today to put this budget together, what kind of software, staffing, oversight we might need to provide. So that's where that non-lapsing fund, having it be funded at an appropriate level where we feel like we can maintain and overcome those hurdles for many years to come.
And if I could just add, just sort of to give like a historical context, last year when we had the extra money to put in the non-lapsing account, it wasn't a notion of we kind of had too much money in our budget or budget too much. It was that excess cost that we talked about that the state gives at a certain formula. We had budgeted because we knew the state doesn't typically give us what they kind of promise us every year. So we budgeted very conservatively at a number. When the state came out with their number in December,
it was, I think, 59%, when many districts plan on getting at least 65, if not 70%. So towns were up in arms about it. The legislator last year put in $40 million in the spring to help with those districts. At that point, because we did 60 and it was 59, we were able to kind of make adjustments for that. So the state gave Farmington, it was approximately, I think, like $300,000, a little more than that, in there. So instead of just, getting that money in, I don't know, it was like April or May, and just trying to kind of, what to do with it, we wanted to be thoughtful on it, and we put it in the non-lapsing account. So that was kind of a unique situation. And this year, same with the context of it is, we had the redistricting across the elementary schools. We got updated enrollment projections because we weren't sure, once again, how numbers were going to split into the amount of sections we had. So we budgeted for that. As we monitored, as we do, because we want to be good fiscal stewards of the town, come April, May, we recognized that, okay, these numbers aren't coming to, so we wouldn't need to hire. So we held off on hiring those. And so that's why that money is in the budget, currently and projected to be there. Because we didn't just say, okay, we have the money, let's go hire the teachers, and and the students will come. We held off on that, and Veronica and I, we kind of looked almost on a daily basis what those numbers were, and were able to not need as many, and so we wanted to make sure we didn't utilize those funds.
Related enrollment projections for next year. Did you change how you were calculating them from the year before?
So yes and no. So last year, because of the redistricting, we went out for a consultant to get like new up-to-date numbers, right? Where we kind of do that. Typically, we will utilize the push-up numbers, and then another concept which is called retention ratio, which is you look at historically what happens at each grade level. And so, from first grade to second grade, there's usually this percentage that impacts it first to second grade. And so you have a lot of the historical data. So you have retention ratio, and then you have push-up numbers, which is just, there's 100 first graders. So next year there's going to be 100 second graders, and you just kind of do it that way. Kindergarten's always tricky because you're really kind of utilizing births that as reported to town hall. And so that's, that becomes always a little bit harder to see because, especially now there's a lot of new developments coming in, people moving in, so they might not have been born in Farmington. And so those numbers are harder to pinpoint with the kindergarten numbers. So last year we had the SLAM consultant report, we had to use the retention ratio, and we had the push-up numbers. Those were the three. This year we didn't use the consult, we're just relying on mostly the retention ratio because we found that one tends to be the most accurate over, year over year, obviously with some fluctuation, but year over year retention ratio seems to be the most consistent. So we're going back to that.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Bill, thanks. Piggybacking on Patty's question, I guess the elephant in the room then is this. And I'm curious as to your thoughts, right? This is more of a conversation than asking you a question. So we're talking about potentially around $500,000 sitting in a non-lapsing account come June 30th of this fiscal year. And knowing that next year's a reevaluation year, that there's going to be significant pressures on both the Board of Ed and town budget. What is the appetite, thought process, or consideration for saying, okay, we'll leave the money in there, and then we can think about deploying that for capital expenditures or something like that next year that will reduce any potential need for an increase next fiscal year?
Sure. I think that'd be very fair ask for us as the Board of Ed. And, again, if we were to fund that account with, again, what our justification would be, because what would be important to us is that there's a shared understanding between the board and the council that we're not just picking random numbers out.
Right.
And we just, we want to be able to say in good faith to you that we see that this amount in here is tied to, unassigned teachers, outplacement costs, right, and a major mechanical, right? So that's the rationale backing up that funding.
Right.
For us, based on our counts, that floats right around $400,000. So again, as we sit here today, there would certainly be probably somewhere in the ballpark of about $135,000 that, partnership with the council, you could think about, offsetting the cost of capital for sure. And that would be our preference, would be to go the route of capital.
Because you're not increasing the operating expenditures that you're committing.
Correct. We're not impacting our operating budget for the future, which again, when we think about protecting budgets, we're protecting those budgets on behalf of the students of Farmington, but also to be fiscally responsible for future budgets, knowing what that impact will be if we add that to our operating costs.
Thanks, Jess.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions generally?
Good.
All right. Thank you for the questions and thank you for the answers. Appreciate everything. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
I believe, Kathy, is this our, are you going to come up? All right. We're going to take a recess before we get into the town budget.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to continue with our budget discussions about with the town. And I'm going to introduce Kathy Wonsky.
Okay, so what we typically would do is that we'll start with the general administration, and it's budget pages 1 through 26. It's the first thing in the tab. Brian, would you want to do it how we normally do it? Is that I do an overview of the general administration accounts.
Okay.
We can go through it, people ask questions, and then we usually TA the whole section.
Right.
If for some reason there's a page or something we want to come back to, we will make a note of that and we'll come back to it at the end. And we don't go page by page, we go section by section.
Right.
Does that make sense? And would you like to continue that way?
Let's do that.
Okay, so
the general administration.
So the general administration, it's budget pages 1 through 26. The general administration group of accounts includes expenses for the administrative branch of town government and funding for nonprofit organizations that the town supports. Some just different things, and I'm just going off the budget notes, is that our personnel costs have increased due to the current job market, increased contractual obligations in an effort to attract and retain employees. The registrar of voters account has increased for the governor's election in November and reflects salary levels for the registrars. Just so you know, we can show you in the budget book, but personnel services accounts for people that are new to the budget process. In the personnel services, when we don't have contracts that are settled, we put a lump sum in that account. And then when the contracts get settled, they get moved into the individual account. We have all our contracts settled right now, so we don't have to have the money in that personnel account. It's all in the different accounts, except for the non-unionized employees and some various other things. The public buildings account has increased as it's only 4 months of expenditures in this year's budget. And we have to now maintain the new town hall and this town hall. And the contributions just to the library are 3% increase. We had a pretty good year with our utilities overall. It was a 4.69% increase. The proposed budget request for this group of accounts increased 2.96% overall. So again, page 1 through 26, I'd be more than happy to try to answer questions on these pages.
Right.
I think not page 27.
Let me see, hold on. Yes, 27. Yep, thank you.
All right, Keith, would you like to get us started?
Yeah, I just have one question on utilities, and maybe this is something that we can't answer at this point yet, but probate, I know, is like there's a few towns that operate this probate. So when like utilities for them being in this building, or when we bring in a Hope partner or something like that, is there a thought of we just kind of continue just to foot the bill for the entire building, or does probate pay anything? Or
I think probate, I think we can talk about them first. I would consider them separate from the other group. So probate, my understanding, and Joe Cat, correct me if I'm wrong, we're required by law to house them.
Okay.
And so we've housed them, and and then we have to pay a certain amount in the budget for them, and I think it's like $20,000 a year. So we're required to do that. I don't know if there's some sort of thing that says that that I think that means that utilities and everything is included in that. I think the other groups we have, the only other group I can really think about is like the services, Hope, that's located in the senior center, we have never charged them for any portion of the utilities or anything like that. A decision has never been made about whether we would do that if people came into this building. We could do that, you know.
Yeah, it's not something I'm necessarily advocating. I'm just curious where that is, because obviously the operation of school buildings,
Yeah.
you know, we bring in, excuse me, charities. You know, sometimes we look at, I mean, especially when you look at like what kind of Staples House and put artists, sounds like a wonderful idea, but we know once we bring anything in there, we talked about it before, it's going to be a really, really large cost. So I just, it's not necessarily a question for this specific budget, but I think before we get there, we're going to have conversations about how we get people, you know, I guess we do need to know some of the body questions, but how we reconcile what sort of improvements we can make versus how charitable we can, you know.
I understand. Yep.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Right, thanks, Bill.
This is just a basic question. On page, you talk about functional equivalents. Functional full-time equivalents. And that's similar to how the teachers, the Board of Ed does. Is it similar kind of a calculation?
Meaning what?
Like
I'm sorry.
full-time equivalent.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You say the one that's a full-time employee, 40 hours a week, and then variations there.
Yeah.
One would be a full-time employee, then if there's any decimal, any percentage, it would be the amount of hours. If somebody works 0.5, they're working 19 and a half hours or something like that.
Okay. But I just figured this was a Thank you. And then in probate, we just pay the $20,000. That's like an operating expenditure, but salaries
and all that.
Their administrative costs, they go through judicial branch, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. What's Capture the Concept?
Capture the Concept is a local Farmington marketing firm
that we have contracted with over the past year to enhance our marketing and communications. They produce a lot of the videos that you see on our social media to promote Farmington events, Farmington in general. So we've worked closely with them to kind of outsource some of that video making and editing. That's really improved our communication efforts online.
And, on page 11, the personnel services, can you describe, like, I see employee recruitments included in this budget line item. Can you just describe some of the recruitment efforts?
So recruitment efforts are dependent on the job. Our standard recruitment is through Indeed. We used to publish in the Hartford Courant, and we stopped that practice a few years ago. One, it was very costly. A very small job ad would be $1,200, $1,300 for something very small, and we weren't getting a return on that. Indeed is free. They actually crawl our website, and whenever we post a job, it automatically goes on Indeed. And that's, anybody that's searching on Google, that's going to be the first hit that comes up. For something that is probably mid to upper level or management, I would do a post on professional organizations. So if it's say somebody in the engineering department, I would post on the American Public Works Association. I would do a listserv that we have in Connecticut. It's a Public Works listserv where they do email blasts on open job opportunities. We post on CCM, Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, their job board. We do LinkedIn. Sometimes we attend career fairs or job fairs to try to, especially for our police department, recruit people and let them know that we're searching for jobs. We cover a wide variety of topics. If you're into social services or police or engineering, we give them our contact information so they can continue to update, check our website for available positions. So it's really job type dependent.
Okay, thank you. I have a question about on page 12, I can't tell which line it is. I know this is a carryover. It's information technology and it was carried over, and it's the line that's 75,168, which is contractual services. And the school we just heard their costs are going up in terms of contracts, and this is slightly lower, so basically on par with last year. Just curious. How?
Overall, and you'll see this, it's consistent throughout the budget. A lot of our software support and stuff and contractual is not just here, but it's throughout the departments. For example, finance has a line for it. And it's pretty consistent that most of the contracts have been going up about 5%. Some went up 7%. So what happens here is that something, we may not do something that we were going to do before. We may switch up. We always look for ways to save money or to find some alternative way of going. So that's really what we look at. A big portion of this is actually, we have a cybersecurity monitor. We have a company that monitors all of our traffic, and this is where we'll pay for them out of that. And some of this will be, we're cutting back, not on the service itself, but on some of the bells and whistles that go with the service.
And then piggybacking on Keith's comments about utilities, I just want to understand the timing. If, we're going to talk later about a bond process and rehabbing this building and potentially organizations moving in. And as this is proposed, it's contemplating a reduction in utilities for this building because lack of occupation. Can I assume that if the bond were to pass and we were to rehab and go through everything, those utility costs would go back up as organizations move in? So this is simply contemplating that there's going to be a reduced occupation in the interim. Yes. Okay.
Depending upon who comes in here and depending upon the renovations that also will impact it. Hopefully, the renovations will bring more energy efficient factors to the building, and also just the use of the building, and the number of people that are in the building. But to answer your question, for next year, it's anticipating this building will be pretty much empty, other than probate.
And us.
Yes. Don't freeze us out.
Yeah. Keep thinking on.
Only one other, it's a nit on page 18. Should services for the elderly be rebranded as Hope Partners? Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Dave?
Yeah, page 12 again. The website redesign has not been included in this budget. And I was just curious. I know it was something that, we talked about and as a focus. Did we have an idea of what that might cost?
Yeah, it depends on how much you want to do.
Right.
We've estimated in my talks with Brian probably somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000 that would be needed for the website redesign.
Right. And so I guess for me, like an activity like that, is that something you think Brian could get done in a year, or is it more a 2-year project so that 75,000 is actually 37.5 both fiscal years?
I think it depends, again, how much you want to do. I know in the strategic plan, we look to set up a small group to review that. I think it's probably at least a 6-month process to go through everything and make sure, you're going to have to do demos. You're going to have to sample things. You're going to have to see a sample of it and make some tweaks and some changes. So I would say at least 6 months. I don't know about a full year. But again, if you're doing a total redesign, it would be more time.
Right. The other item I have is on the town hall where you are now. Obviously, the utilities are going up, and the recommended utility for electricity up there is $100,000. Is that? Do we have a pretty good handle on that? Like, do we have?
On the existing, on this town hall?
No, the town hall, not the new town hall. I mean, I'm going off of page 26 now. It's $100,000.
It's an approximation, but we do have. We've been paying bills all along for the building. Obviously, it's been renovated, so those bills aren't going to be the same. But we've been seeing what the bills since January, what the bills have been coming in at, and we think we have a pretty good handle on that.
Okay.
So, it's going to be more than this building. This building ran about $88,000 a year.
Got it.
So, but that building should be hopefully more energy efficient. I know all my plugs go out at night, so right. My refrigerator doesn't work overnight, so we're saving some money.
has a lot of windows though. in the building.
Because I'm hoping, yeah, I mean, and then obviously, yeah, because, you know, we're running 2 buildings now. Obviously, we got the town hall annex here now. And I'm hoping we could drop below the 45.3 actually, but, you know, we'll see. That's all I have for right now.
All right, Nadine?
Yes, so the question I had was around the registrars. So what are, like, how many folks have we been registering? I think last year there was also an increase. Are we obligated to follow every election?
The registrars are gonna come tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. Yeah, so
Oh,
they
okay.
usually wouldn't answer those types of questions for you.
Okay. Was I on the wrong page, Kathy?
Yeah. Okay.
I said, was I on the wrong page?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I should have said they're in the account, but they usually come separately into a presentation on their own budget.
And then just on the grant, I think it's on page 18, on the Farmington Library grant includes a 3% increase.
On page 18.
Page 18. Is that like updates? That's just support. Just I was going back to see where I had notes on that. The increase, is that to like renovations and stuff that they need, or what is the grant for?
No, this is basically, and the library I think is coming tomorrow too, but I can.
Oh, sorry.
But that's okay, I can answer this question for you, no problem. The library, we basically give the library a grant to, it's the majority of their operating expenses. So we give them a grant to, even though they don't.
So any maintenance that they have to do?
Everything.
Yeah, so everything. So just whatever to run their business.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm only saying that because I was just thinking about how, you know, they mentioned their issues with their heating and
Yeah.
that's their operating
What
budget.
they do is they come to me with their draft budget.
Yep.
And what they request, and they came in with the 3%, and it's for personnel, social security.
So that's the 3% is that dollar. Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know. Thank you. That's all I had.
And then, but just a big one thing, that they do get some of their income supplemented by their, what is their group called?
The Friends.
Endowment.
Their endowment.
Oh, their endowment and then their, yeah.
We
Okay.
fund about 92% of their operating budget.
Thank you.
All right, Bruce?
Got to go back to page 11, which was the contractual services line. I guess my question would stem around, have we made sufficient allowance in our estimate for this, for some of the needs that might be coming up this year? You know, we have some senior people, and maybe some of the things we've been typically expending might not be sufficient, whether that might be some overlap time for key roles, headhunters, signing bonus, things like that. If we are concerned about that, are we comfortable that we have enough in there for a little bit of uncertainty?
Yeah, what we do is that in the salary reserve, we have some different things for those types of things that come on. And like in our world here in the union, we have things like reclassifications where, again, you're talking about more of improvement of things, but there's other things too where all of a sudden an employee asks for a reclassification. We have to bump people's salaries up and do different things. So we try to estimate, we get a list of people like that. We know what that is. We try to put, we don't know if they're going to get reclassified, but we have to put money in for that. We do different things for changing different. We've never really used a headhunter service before, but something like that would be, we could put in this, it would be in the salary reserve account. And we do try to make accommodations. We don't know what's going to happen. And we try to keep it as conservative as we can, but we also want to have the money to do the things we need to do.
Okay. I think a number of my questions have been asked. Give me a moment here. The regional associations, CROG and CCM, are those direct payments, charges for membership, or some kind of service fees? How are these calculated, and how are they paid?
Basically, they're usually calculated on population. It's like it's so much per capita, and then they will directly bill us. They'll sell last month or the month before. They'll send us a letter saying, "Hey, this is what we're looking at for charges for next year," and then basically in July, they'll send us a bill and we'll pay the bill directly to them.
Okay, thank you.
And both CCM and Cost are really our lobbyist group. That's a lot of what, and that it's again based on some population and different things like that, but that's what we're paying them for.
And is the health district is similar, or that's separate?
The health district's a regional health district, so instead of having a health director here, we have a regional health director
Right.
for all the Farmington Valley towns. And so we're a regional health district.
And that cost is based on our
Population.
Got it.
And the other thing we should point out is CROG and CCM have pretty much flatlined their dues for probably the past 10 years. And the other thing about CCM, we're for our insurances, our general liability, our workers' comp, we participate in a risk pool called KERMA, and at the requirement to participate in KERMA, we have to be a member of CCM. So it's
Understood. Okay, thank you. And just piggybacking on what Nadine was talking about, we're going to get the detail on the library tomorrow.
I mean, we have the detail. Typically, the library handles their library budget, but I can request if you'd like them to go through their library budget in detail, they could do that for you. We have the, they give us.
It's a big ticket item.
Yep, sure.
And
When did I get a
I'm
copy?
thinking that I'm wondering is the usage of the library declining over time with the movement of people through new technologies, and how is there an opportunity to save some money there is really what I'm getting at.
They're going to tell you tomorrow, but what's interesting is the digital resources that they lend out, which are very popular, are equally, if not more expensive than the hard copies. And the licensing for them is a tremendous expense, and that's where a lot of their budget goes right now. But Jocelyn's very good. She'll get into all of it tomorrow. The library is an interesting one because it's, independent. However, like Joe said, 92% of the budget comes from us. So it is a big ticket item, but it supports both Village and Farmington Public Library. And they are still, their numbers are still pretty good as far as attendance, at least last I was aware of.
But what I'll do is I'll talk to the library director and I'll ask her to give a good overview and then show the budget for you guys. I'll send that out to you tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think everything else has been asked, so thank you.
I had one quick question for Joe. So Joe, because I looked at it and then I figured, well, you kind of added to it, but KERMA, that's just general liability? Is that also our auto? I mean, what policies do we share like in a risk pool? And that would be on page 27.
So actually, everything there is KERMA except for the volunteer firefighters.
Okay.
So basically, the bonds, several of us have to be bonded.
Okay.
So we KERMA, they don't underwrite the bonds. They have a third party underwrite the bonds. Professional liability, that's E&O for the town and for you. Automobile liabilities, KERMA, general liability, and the umbrella are all written through KERMA, through the risk pool. The volunteer firefighters is through a company called VFFIS. It's a volunteer, basically it's an insurance provider who specializes in volunteer fire departments. And actually we do go through KERMA as an agent to get that policy.
Okay, so
they
KERMA still
don't
helps
deal with
us.
us directly. You have to go through an agent, and KERMA will act as our agent, so to speak. Even though they're not our agent, they'll act as our agent to get us that policy. So we use KERMA for everything. The board also uses KERMA. All of our insurances, both the schools and the town, are through KERMA. We have, and all the policies are one policy for both of us.
And so that's a risk pool that we're in with all these other municipalities that have CCM membership and actually can use it.
Right. Basically what happened was back in probably the 90s. I think it was the 90s. The municipal market dried up. You could not get coverage anywhere. And what coverage you could get was through the roof. So CCM petitioned the state of Connecticut to give them a charter to set up a risk pool. There was several of them that were set up, and the only one that survived was KERMA. All the rest of them went by the by. KERMA did survive, and it's gone very strong. They have about 140 out of 169 municipalities. They do have districts, independent school districts, and some other things, but they're very strong. They have a very retention rate's about 93% each year. So, and the pool is very strong. It's well reserved right now, and actually they give back in good years. They'll actually give back dividends for I don't want to say premium, but they give back to their participants.
Got it. Okay, you've answered my questions. Thanks.
Any different? Anyone else have a follow-up?
Nope. So typically you would make a motion and it would be budget pages 1 through 27, I'd say minus page 9 and minus page 18. And 9 is the registrars and 18 is the library.
What about economic development? I know Rose is out.
Rose-
we getting a presentation on that tomorrow, or?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, so which pages, Kathy?
Minus 9 and
It'd be
1 through 27?
127 minus 9 and minus page 18.
Okay. I make a motion for a tentative approval of pages 1 through 27 minus pages 9 and 18.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
I thought we would go to, I think we said benefits next, and page 69 and 70. Hold on, 69 and 70. Where's our benefit? How is it?
All right. Mo-
All right, so okay, so this is our benefits and our other account. The other account is just a small contingency that the council has of $10,000 that if something comes up that we use for that. That's what the other account is. And the benefits, Joe can go through any of the questions that you may have on that. Overall, the account has decreased 1.74%. Some of that decrease, though, and I was going to talk a little bit more about it tomorrow when the police are here. But again, because we were able to move employees out of the operating budget, their benefits were also moved out of the operating budget too. So that helped us there too.
Right. Do you have any questions, Bruce? I'll start down at your end.
No questions.
Nadine?
No questions.
Dave?
No, good.
Patty?
No questions.
Yeah, just on the heart and hypertension. I know that the potential class of individuals that would qualify for those benefits continues to shrink year over year, right? And my understanding, though, under the statute, is that the town has the dollar financial. In other words, it's not workers' comp; it's the town has the financial responsibility. So that $68,000, that's an actual estimate as to what the cash exposure is for benefits, or how do you guys do that?
So we have anybody hired after a certain date, and I don't remember the exact date. It was back in the 90s.
In 97, I think.
Yeah, they're now considered workers' comp.
Right.
They file for heart and hypertension. Anybody prior to 97 would still be qualified for heart and hypertension. We've had numerous claims. We've settled quite a few of them. We have 2 left.
Okay.
That are out there, and one is a maintenance. It's person's basically has hypertension, and so it's a maintenance situation for them. We're paying their pharmacy bills, but we are responsible for anything that should happen to them and to their survivors. And then we have a survivor. We have a police officer who passed away many years ago, and his wife or his spouse has survivorship benefits. So that number, pretty much 95% of that number is survivorship payments, and the rest of it is basically maintenance. We used to also budget for STIPs. We try to STIP people out, and nobody wants to STIP anymore. So we're basically paying for 2 people.
I understand. Okay. And that can't be annuitized kind of separately, that. Could you annuitize the financial obligation, or is it something the town can't do? In other words, you go out and buy an annuity, say for.
We could. Right now it's
not that much. It's not that much.
We could have a conversation about that
Sure.
offline.
It's not big. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's just it's sensitive to talk about.
Understood.
Publicly.
Fair enough. Leave it at that.
Be more than happy to talk offline about.
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely understood.
All right. Thanks, Keith.
Without getting too much in the weeds, just because we've been talking about attracting employees, whatever else. So, for the average employee, do we offer good benefits?
Yes.
We do. So we've never had somebody say, I would take this job, but your healthcare stinks or your 401k plan is bad or.
No. I mean, our benefits, as most municipalities, have changed because of the fact that we've gotten away with most of the departments from the pension plan.
Yeah.
But our police department is still a pension plan, which is an attractive, and a lot of police departments are still, but that, if we weren't, I would say that would be a big problem. But I think we made a very good decision to keep the pension plan, and especially how it's so hard to recruit police now. And so other than that, but one of the problems without the pension plan is that people don't stay as long, and we do have a retention because of that, because of not having the pension plan. But I don't know too many municipalities that have full pension plans still for their employees.
I just meant compared to our competition for municipal workers.
No, we keep on reviewing. We are going to review a little bit on our 401, what our match is for.
What is it right now?
6%. And so, but we've been doing a little bit of a study to make sure that that's competitive.
I mean, it sounds good just based on.
Submit, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean,
And actually,
yeah, that's what
people we've talked to tell us that. I just personal experience. I tried, not personal experience, professional experience. I tried to recruit somebody to come here, and they're getting 10% in another town, a 10% match. So
now that's for what type of position?
401. It was a maintainer position.
For a maintainer position. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So
yeah,
it might be a little bit behind on that one.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know more about what other towns are doing in that respect. Because I just, as we've had these conversations about how hard it is to fill roles in certain departments and things like that, knocking out the benefits part is one where we can set a policy here. And
the one thing that we have changed up, we're looking at that, and like I tend to agree more with Joe. I think we're probably a little low in comparison, because we do have very good benefits. And the other thing that we've changed up, and it's been a change, and we've done it in the union contracts, and we've talked about it a little bit. Everyone wants more vacation.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that we've tried to bump that up, and different things like our old contracts. And again, you get 5 days for a year of time, and that's like real old school. And so any higher level person, we work with the unions and do different things for vacation time. Everyone wants vacation time.
It's hard to tell somebody who's coming from another job that has, say, 3 weeks that you can't get 5 days until you've worked with us for 6 months. Like that's hard. So we've worked, like Kathy said, to put it in contracts to give Kathy that negotiating power when we're hiring people to start them off with some more vacation time to make it more attractive.
Has the administration of the CT sick leave policy impacted? Have you found just in general that employees are good about that, or have you found complications? Because I know there's an ability to take an hour here or an hour there if you want to.
We don't have that.
I thought we have to have that.
You're talking about the state problem?
The state one.
We under state law, we have to provide our part-timers, anybody with sick time.
Yeah.
But we're not part of that commission and that consortium that people are paying into to take sick leave or take personal leave.
Can I get paid leave act?
We are not.
Municipalities exempt from that?
There's two different ones. There's one which is the pay, and there's one that's the time off.
Right. We do have the 40 hours.
Where you have to bank it.
Yeah, we have the 40 hours. We have not had significant issues with that.
Great. That's good.
But like Joe said, the Connecticut version of FMLA.
Yes.
We do not pay into it, and therefore we're exempt from it.
Yeah, that I remember last we were here we were concerned that because you have these unions and collectively bargain pay time off, whatever else, so it could be a complicator. But it's good to hear that it's not.
Right.
That's it.
Great. Are there any follow-up questions?
Yes. If you're looking at the increase match 401k, would that be part of future contract negotiations, or would you be looking at that like in a next budget cycle?
It depends on who the position was coming in. If it was a non-unionized position, that would be something that we would do on what we talked about with Bruce in our salary reserve. That would be a change of that. Mm-hmm. If it was not if it was a contract position, which most of our employees are, it would have to be negotiated in the contracts.
Okay.
I could, just for the I know there's 3 members of the former members of the retirement board, just to let you know what your hard work has done.
I see it.
No, you don't. It's buried in there, but your contribution for next year increased. The contribution to the pension plan next year increased by $26,000. So that was really, really good. It's like I've never seen an increase that low since I've been here. So you guys did a good job.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Whoa, that was.
I think that all the tractor that was really late, like 2022, though, right? Really, we did a lot of work.
I said 3 of you. I said 3 of you. So.
So if we don't have any other
Well, just staying with employee benefits and not necessarily what's here, but we did work on hours, right? Didn't we work on hours where people have a half day?
So that was never like the contract that was not.
Oh, that never got embedded.
At the end, that didn't get
That didn't, okay, I wasn't sure. That didn't get put into the contract. Okay.
Okay, if we don't have any further questions, you want to see
I make a motion to temporarily approve pages 69 and 70.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
All right, the next one was, we're gonna do debt service, which is 71. This is this is on page 71, but also just so you remember, it's also on your front page on your tax and budget worksheet. It's the same, it's the debt number. So if you notice on the tax and worksheet, it's 13,985,252. And if you look on page 71, you can see the same number. And that went up 1.96%. And Joe, maybe you can talk to the debt.
Sure. Basically, this is all of our obligations, our existing obligations that we have to pay going back from 2013 up to 2025, and plus our clean water debt. We have 3 issues there for the upgrade of the treatment plant. And we also have money in here set aside for the potential debt issue, probably late in 2026, maybe early 2027. For what we're looking at right now is approximately a $13 million debt issuance at that time. And it's really going to be, hopefully, it'll be a cleanup issue of some projects that are out there. And we did budget the interest cost for that in here.
All right. Do we have any questions? I can see or read and keep building. Got any questions?
Yeah. Okay.
No, go.
Are you ready?
So Joe, I just wanted to make sure I heard you right there. I might have missed it. If we were to fund the bond or bond the HVAC, is the cost of that debt the interest cost remain?
No, I wouldn't.
Would be next year's.
That would be a 2027 issue.
Got it.
What would happen with that is that's small enough that, again, because you have a healthy fund balance, you could advance cash towards that.
Got it.
So we would advance cash towards that and do the debt issuance in sometime in 2027. Once that, and again, that's a school technically a school construction project. So I wouldn't want to issue the debt until the project was complete and we knew what the reimbursement rate was going to be, so that we could just issue our portion of it and not the.
So we front it as it went.
So we would front the cash until we had a good handle as to what the exact cost would be.
Thank you. That's actually a really important piece of information, because any potential opposition would be the perception that we're going out and borrowing money right away, when that's actually not necessarily what we're going to do.
Yeah, pretty much, with the exception of roads, pretty much any project, it's usually, it won't get issued for at least a year. We won't borrow for at least a year before. For example, the police HVAC project was approved 2 years ago, and we haven't bonded it yet. That would actually come up in the next bond issue. The HVAC for the senior center and the highway garage, assuming those projects go off the ground shortly, that will probably get caught up in this one here. But Well, fire trucks fire trucks are another exception. Fire trucks usually get bonded fairly quickly after they're authorized.
And that's because of the lag time to get in the truck, right?
And they're not something that you take a long time. You can go out to bid really quickly for a truck and get it. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Keith, did you have a question? I didn't want to. You're good. All right, Patty.
Nothing. Thank you.
Dave.
No, I think again he's going to go the 2020. You know, in this calendar year, it's going to be later on in the year that you're going to do this bond issuance. Obviously, if Bill's report was correct the other day on the high school, right, the finance committee over the next few months is going to basically reconcile that and get that done. The 1928 building, I would assume, is in the same ball of wax.
Yeah, the 1928 building is a little different. There's no state reimbursements. So
Right.
We don't have to.
You have to go to the
We don't have to
BAS or whatever.
Yeah, we don't have to do anything with them. And we've actually issued the majority of the 1928 building. The only thing I left was $1 million.
Okay.
And I'm not really sure why I did that.
Okay.
But I did leave $1 million not issued, and I would issue that in the next bond issue.
Perfect.
Close out that authorization.
And just help me, because you said the interest is here in this.
In the bond interest number, there's interest included there's an interest payment included. To give you an example of how it would work, if you look at the manager's column on page 71, and there's a bond interest line, third line down.
Right.
It's 2.7 million, 2721.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to the opposite page, and if you go down to where it says subtotals bonded debt, and you go across, you see 2521.
I got it.
69.
That's the delta.
So the $200,000 is built in into the budget for the next.
Right. I didn't see it here, but now when you reconcile both these, I see the $200,000. Okay, that was my.
Hopefully the other one matches out. The principal, yeah, the principal is 8140. The principal is 8140. So good.
Okay. Thank you.
Nadine.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Bruce.
Mechanically, how do these work? Because we have like multiple instruments. Are they lump sum? Does your office process all the payments, or is there a custodian we work with?
No, we contract with U.S. Bank as as the registrar and paying agent. Everything is done electronically these days, and there's only one. Excuse me. So even though each year of an issue stands alone. So when somebody bids on bonds, they actually bid on the different years, and they bid different interest rates for the different years. So usually, but everything goes to one bidder. We don't break up the years to multiple bidders. We basically goes to the lowest bidder, the lowest true interest cost. But we only issue one bond. Actually, even though there's multiple bonds, there's 20 years of bonds. We only issue, and all bonds are issued in increments of $5,000. We issue one paper bond, and everything else.
It's a single QSIP?
No.
There are multiple QSIPs, but a single bond.
It's one single bond that Kathy and I sign, and it's stored at. It's actually stored with the registrar in New York City, and we hire U.S. Bank to be the paying agent on our behalf. So whenever a bond issue comes up, U.S. Bank will. Whenever debt payment comes up, U.S. Bank will notify us 60 days in advance and say, on this date, we need X number of dollars from you so we can pay the bondholders. We will transfer X number of dollars to U.S. Bank, and U.S. Bank will then pay the bondholders.
Got it. And so none of them are callable, and there's no sinking funds or
all of our bonds are callable after 10 years.
They are all callable after 10 years.
Yeah. We either between 7 and 10 years we put a call provision in our bonds. So it was very successful for us back in the early 2010 to 2015. We called pretty much every single bond we had outstanding, refinanced it.
Save money. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it doesn't pay to do that because
it's the other way around.
It's the other way around right now. And also the big tool that we always had was we were allowed to advance refund our bonds. Whereas even if a bond wasn't callable, we could basically call it or borrow the money. Say we had $13 million outstanding and it wasn't callable until 2017. Well, in 2013, I could issued $13 million. I could do, if you guys approved it, I would have issued $13 million, put it in escrow. And I would use the escrow proceeds to pay this interest. And then in 2017, I'd pay off all the bondholders at the call date. The 20, whatever it was, the 2017 tax bill, or whatever, the big federal tax bill in 2017, 2018, it did away with advance refunding, so we can no longer advance refund. So we have to wait till it's callable.
This is good. All right, thank you.
All right, any other follow-up questions?
Now we know why Kathy likes to go to the mill.
So you want a TA?
I make a motion for a TA at page 71.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
I thought, what time is it, about 7:30? I thought maybe we'd go through some of the capital things. So we talked about the capital. We have it in the back of the book. It's paid. We typically don't TA the capital. We're just talking about the capital. So you see that our capital is, again, referred to the front page of the tax and budget worksheet, $3,852,000, and it's a 27.68% increase. We've talked quite a bit about the various capital expenditures. I don't know if you wanted to just ask questions or you wanted to focus a little bit on the town hall annex. I know that we came back with some information when I did my presentation. So
I'll jump in. I'll defer to the town hall annex for a second. There was some discussion when Russ presented about snow removal vehicle, and we were talking about if we were to do that, we could put that in capital.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think, but when you said that, I don't think you did. You put that in the how that would impact the budget?
No, I did not.
Okay.
We got a price from Russ, and it was with the equipment that comes with it. Was it $260,000 for the snow blower, or thrower or blower?
The snow
blower, the snow thing.
Is that one thing I was thinking about? Is could that vehicle, whatever, give us an opportunity? Like, in other words, other communities needed it. Could we rent it out? Or
It's interesting you said that, because I was like to Russ, let's borrow a couple of but everyone needs them at the same time.
Well, right. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone uses it at the same time.
Well, what you're hoping for is not a quick warm up.
Yeah.
You want a prolonged cold, so we get done first.
Yes.
And then we get
Yeah. If it wasn't in the high school, maybe we could consider that, but because it's the high school.
Okay, fair enough. So I guess it's really a council decision whether or not we collectively feel like it's a good thing to have.
Yeah.
Based on what Russ has said.
Right. And again, a couple of things I think we've mentioned it. We didn't put it in this budget because, one, we didn't realize we've never had the big snow like this. And then we've seen how unproductive it is with the kind of snow that we've had. And so that's why it's kind of moved up to the top of the.
And it's like one of these things too, where you could sit here and say, "What?" I mean, we all saw the need of it, right?
Yeah.
And you need it when you need it,
right?
But if we have the winters like we've had for the last 12 years, it's going to be sitting there collecting dust.
Right, right. Yeah, it would still be used up there. It just wouldn't be to the extent, but I mean, we'd still use it,
right?
Still use it and things like that. I mean, to me, it's more about we're paying money out to someone else with that kind of snow. We typically would not, but because of it's such a high maintenance type of thing, you still need quite a few employees up there doing it. And because it's the high school, to open school, obviously you have to that takes away from the employee that's plowing the road. And so, that makes it difficult.
Cost benefit analysis in that regard, because you're committing staff and then paying contractors.
Yeah.
Has you got the bills yet in for any contractors?
I think Russ was getting that for me. Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
That number was interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because he says that number was like $100,000 or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we should think about it, right?
Right. Yeah. The other thing to consider with that snow thrower too is just for the sake of, because there was also discussion. I know when we had talked about annex, maybe we did this or did that, maybe there would be free capital to do a second truck. Because we've talked about how I think. There's some nostalgia for like the Farmington way, but then there's also the effect of like push some of the stuff down the road, then the bill comes due for lots of trucks. So I would just say there's the real, I would defer to Russ on what he wants. He said he would prefer the snow thrower over another truck. So I would take that as God, and he can tell us tomorrow. But I would just say it's another one of those situations where, so it is another year where that truck gets pushed off, and it's not because council's being cheap or we're trying to stretch a dollar. We're actually trying to give more into it. I just think, for the record, it's a thing to consider. I also know Middletown does this really interesting thing where the municipality pushes all the snow into the middle of the road, and they come by with one of these snow throwers and then suck it all up and get it off the road.
Yeah.
So I think that I don't know that we would be able to do this because I know a lot of Middletown is 2 lanes, particularly on Main Street. But I do know there's probably other applications for this too, where if we had a big snow, instead of keeping the banks so heavy, we could probably get rid of it in other areas too. So
I think we'd use it, like it wouldn't just sit with different things.
it wouldn't sit up on the top hill.
No. And plus, I can't remember what municipality, it wasn't Middletown, but there's another municipality that he's been talking to, and they love it. They use it all the time.
Oh, Middletown has a really good snow removal where they have 2 trucks go down on both sides of the road, push it all to the middle, and then they come down with this huge snow blower and they back it into a truck and then go. And everything's off the streets, off the sidewalks.
I actually saw that in operation in Windsor after the first big snowstorm. They actually went down the side roads in one of the neighborhoods and took the snow right back to the curb.
Yeah,
and put it into the truck. So it's quite impressive, actually.
We have a lot of roads we could do that on.
Yeah.
Did we consider looking at potentially a second-hand one? I mean, there's probably none around here, but I grew up in Montreal. They have hundreds of these things.
Yeah, right.
Hmm?
Yeah, Maine, Canada.
Yeah.
We haven't. It's something we can talk about with Russ. I know that they've been doing a lot of research and trying to figure out what it is. I mean, again, I'm not against a secondhand one but again, I don't want to have a piece of equipment that is breaking down.
Russ loves secondhand stuff.
Yeah, because we have a lot of old equipment as it is.
Right.
Well, that's
warranty on it.
That's another thing I thought about too was because there was also a snow melter, right?
Yeah.
But I am sure the melter is more expensive.
The melter is just high
energy cost. Well, that was going to be my point. Is that I bet we have really good mechanics.
Yeah.
And a large snow thrower sounds like something that a really good mechanic can handle without special training. Where a melter probably has these components that are different than what.
And then you're heating it, and then it's expensive to do that.
Right.
And then there's if it didn't have the salt in it and stuff like that, I maybe would consider it because then you'd have all that water, and if maybe we could use the water for something, but it has the salt in it, so that doesn't work.
I'm good. I'm good with that.
I have nothing else on that.
So a couple of things on the capital. One would be I'll start the small one, then I'll get to the town hall annex for a second. But the Tinty Barn improvements, $50,000 is going to do the rest of the project, the English being umbrella roof and so forth. And then we just touched upon it, but there's some ideas about now that the building will be stabilized and actually aesthetically pleasing, there might be a future for it.
Yes.
Okay. Or this might not be the place to talk about.
Let me talk offline with you about this.
Okay.
And then you can decide if you want to publicly talk about it.
Okay.
But they are renovating it. There's been different organizations that have come to us and asked about the building, and so I'd rather talk to you offline about that.
Okay, great. Okay, fine. So on the town hall annex, I guess the $7 million. I think and then we talked a little bit on just kind of a phased approach or whatever. I mean, everybody that night made a great case for where they are now and the space that they could, harness here and how it would leverage their operations and so forth and so on. I guess the question for me is on this is that it's easy enough to get the multiple users. We're blessed to have these volunteer organizations do the great work that they have and bring them here. I just think we should probably kind of spend the money, just really understand that design, not necessarily from the report that, where it's all color coded and who's going where. It's just that this building was built differently than the 1928 building. The 1928 building is a wood frame building within a masonry structure. So like when you want to pipe through it and so forth, it's pretty easy, right? Because it's wood construction and you just kind of run risers where you run vertical pipes. This building's built a little differently. So I'd rather understand where these people are, and then what's the improvements we need to make in this building that I think are going to be more expensive than even the 1928 building to execute some of the things that we want to do here. And I think it would be prudent, at least from my point of view, would be to really understand that in its totality, and then decide whether we want to bond it all in one shot, or there's a phased approach at that point. That's kind of where I come down on. You know what I mean? So I do think knowing that we're going into a reval year next year, this could complicate matters a little bit, and that's a different discussion that we can collectively have.
Right. And yeah, I think part of it is, I think it's it's this way. Your point is very well taken. And it also goes maybe a little bit to what Keith was saying on a different end, is that, again, some of the logistics of how this is all going to work hasn't been ironed out either. Yeah. But then that said, it's not like we're not doing best practices. It's doable. Right. We can do it because of the fact that we're going to have a reval year next year. So we have to look at the whole big picture of it. But to me, if you were saying that there was no reval year and anything like this, you'd do it more. You'd get an architect. We'd iron out more of how this is all going to work with the council. Are we charging? What's the utilities? What is this building is different? And then put it on. It'll be ready to go next year. But there's a couple of problems, though, is that the HVAC system here is really on its brinks. And I don't know if anyone had heard that, probate didn't have this, but we can fix things. It's not like it's totally off, but there's problems. But I'm concerned about putting an HVAC system as a standalone, because we don't have a lot of time, and it's hard to explain why we're doing an HVAC system in a town hall that we just built a new town hall. Right. And that without the rest of the people in it, at context. And then the other problem is that you do the HVAC system, and then next year you want to get people in and do the renovation, and no one wants to do the renovation. And then we have a brand new HVAC system for a building that has, someone else in it. So it's complicated. It's a complicated.
So I guess two things. One is, again, maybe a terrible idea, but things pop in my brain. Is there any utility to bonding out for the AC, but holding off on the work? You know what I mean? I guess that doesn't make sense, right? To try to get them timed out more together, but to have the bonding, it doesn't make any sense. My thing about the annex and everything was, my initial pitch that I said was, I believe that there is utility in this building and I think that I don't know that Nancy would agree. She may not. But when I look at the space that's at Staples House and the space that's in town planning and zoning, and so to be able to move from Staples House into here, there's significant office room. There's their own dedicated conference room in there. Plus, there's the ability to walk down here and use the space that they need to. There's the outside area as well. And so I thought for her, there would be utility just in being here, which is why it would be a good idea to do the AC, open the doors and say, please come in, and we can do it after. Now, I understand that for her and for the other groups to move in and then do this rehab work and have to move out, and it's like this hokey pokey, it probably makes it more difficult, which I get. But in thinking about it a lot, the one space that I think that could certainly be separated off for the time being is like Staples House, because I think that's going to be the one where we're going to find the most, hidden costs, where you're going to take apart one thing and it's going to become another thing and it's going to become another thing. And so I don't know. I mean, I would love to take the temperature of everybody else, how people feel about. We all agree that these are worthy causes. We all agree that we want them to have a great space. I think, and again, I don't want to speak for you guys, I think we probably would all get to a space where we were comfortable with trying to come up with covering as much utility and rental and all that kind of stuff. But we do have the reval year next year. So it's nice to get things done when we have the funds, but it's also, the bill's going to come due. Our tax rate looks good, but we are still on the high side of the, increase, right? The budgetary increase, right? Because we said 2.75 to 4.5 or 4.75, and we're at what, like 4.25 right now, something like that.
Yeah.
So we're still on the higher end of that, and these things kind of, because they're bonded, they're not necessarily like on the report card, you know, but they are, because they're going to come due next year in the general budget. So I'm really of two minds about it, because on the one hand, anything that is its own bonding question gives the public the ability to vote it down. So we could pass a great budget, and the public could vote this section of it down, and then we could get roads and not this, or we could get none of the big ones. And so part of me says, like, if it's going to be for the public, then let the public vote for it. But it is a lot, and it's a lot on top of a lot. So I just, you know.
One of the things, and then is that, like we were talking a little bit last night, and I think in 20 years, people would would be a wonderful campus if this was done. You know, like when you come back in history and you say, you come in and you have your social services and your food bank and the cultural district bridge and everything's going, and you say, you know, but it's a hard decision. I also tend to think that, you know, if you're going to lump it together, you do them both together, and for the public, and you have these nonprofit agencies, and if they can get their people out, and you get a pulse on the community, because again, it has to take some time to get people to understand that we're not renovating a town hall again for the town. You know, people are moving in, and I think it would give you kind of a parameter of where the public stands if you put it out there together. Again, you know, and they have it. If it crashes and burns, I think you got a pretty clear message on.
Do people then worry that 2 years from now we're at the library and we went from putting through $100 million high school or wherever it was to it's my point is just it's you know, we said we've never done so many we have never done so many projects at the same time, and that's the same with the taxpayer too, at a time where mill rates are going up. So I'm talking on both sides of my mouth, because I'm not in favor. I'm not against maintaining this building and doing it. I agree with you. I think it'd be great if there was, you know, again, we could do the walking trail straight to the municipal campus, and we have the high school here, and kids can go at 9 to 28. I'm sure there's going to be utility for Hope Partners in the old gymnasium at Town Hall and things like that for events. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. Want to go back to Nadine, because I wanted to.
I was just going to say,
continue the conversation.
I agree. It is a lot, and maybe it's a staggered thing. I also think a vacant building over time is going to also cost money to renovate down the road. So the average cost of the current budget, I think, is $265 of an increase as it is today, right? And I know we're going to reval next year, potentially an increase. So it's not a good time either way, but if we were to do it, makes sense now versus maybe later. But I'm more of the staggered approach. I just worry in a couple of years having a vacant building is going to be a challenge. Cost more.
I guess I go to like page 71. I take a look at page 71, and I look at the page that says fiscal year 26, 27. I look at our bonding, right? And we look at that, and I look at 13, 15, 16, 17, 19, and you know, there's small balances, you know, and then you hit the high school and you're 32 million, 27 million, 29 million, 450,000, 22 million, 500,000. And so, and I think Bill said it in our meeting last week, unfortunately, when we talked about moving this, and I don't disagree with the fact of your observation of a beautiful campus and all these things. I totally agree with you, okay? But when that was conceived up there, it wasn't conceived as a $25 million project. The town hall up on the hill was, what I'm saying is the $7 million for me is part of that project. So for me, it's the $7 million is something that's like a kicker at the end that we just weren't transparent enough in the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's what really is the crux of where I'm at with this, is that I just think that, you know, these numbers here show that we were really taking on a lot of responsibility. That, by the way, I think we needed a high school a lot sooner than we got it. And for a number of years, I think people were kicking that can down the road for whatever reason. But that's been handled. And moving up to the town hall to the 1920 has been handled. And I think at some point we just, I understand timing and I understand all of that, but it's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
It's just a lot to ask.
Well-
But like you say, and I think Keith said it very well, is that if we do decide to put it there, I mean, the voters have the final say on whether the money should actually be appropriated in a lump sum like that right now or not.
And the other thing, and Dave and Nadine, what has to be put into this equation is that we have fire stations.
Right.
And the fire stations are big projects.
Right.
Talk about getting kicked down the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Those guys have been,
Right.
We'll tell you, they've been put off and put off.
And they have been, and we've been talking about it, and it's a much more comprehensive project now, which is needed in our fire stations. Again, kicking the can, and it's a big project, and that's coming like soon.
Right.
I think, right?
Right.
So
And that's a great example of kind of what we're talking about right here. This is something that we all kind of agree is a real benefit to the town, to the entire town. It benefits residents and the nonprofits. And if we don't do something about it, if we start kicking it down the can, we have seen in the past with high schools, with firehouses, what happens if we take these, what I would consider a smaller project compared to the others. It's only going to get bigger and uglier if we don't do something about it. So that's one of the things that I'm considering in this conversation, because we're willing to do half the project that we say it's definite, it's something we've got to do. And if we're going to take care of the AC, we do a little more, do we get it done and off our plate at a better price than what we're going to get if we do it halfway and try and do it in 4 years?
What goes to the senior center when Hope moves
Patty?
out?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
All right, no, I spoke out. What goes in the senior center once Hope moves out?
it's not a really large space, the office space, so they'll just use that space for their programs and things of that nature.
And as we heard last night, there are a lot of programs at the senior center.
Yeah, they've certainly demonstrated the need. Yeah.
Patty, I'm sorry, I had a comment. Did you finish up, Pete?
Yeah. I've
Oh, just
talked way too much already. Sorry.
Go ahead, Patty.
I have a couple of comments. I'm wary, the more I think about it, of splitting HVAC and the larger renovation. I'm concerned about the timing of when that larger renovation, when the renovation later would happen, and what happens if we have funded an HVAC project and then 2 years down the line, the town decides we don't want to fund any more projects. And now we've put a brand new HVAC system in through capital, which what do we do now because of all the policies about how long we should maintain something? And if we don't, we're not using the building to full capacity. So that is a concern for me. I think, Kathy, we talked about, you mentioned it, we talked 20 years from now, it would be great if we could have all these services provided here and have the whole campus set up. And it puts us today in a much harder position. I do have concerns about probate being in here and not having heat for however many days it was. And my understanding is that we cannot move social services in yet because with the planning department spend, what's been moved out.
You'd have to put some, they just couldn't move in. Yeah. You know, we could probably, again, depending on what kind of renovation, we probably could get them in, but you're talking, some renovation. And the other thing, talking about, you said, Dave, it's your point when you think about it, is that this building, we have vaults. We have like different things in here, it's like, that's a thing. Like, so even like the engineering department, it's not the end of the world, but the engineering department has a big vault in there. It has like stuff that's different.
It's a former prison cell down
and
there.
And prison cells down here, which was never renovated. So it's, it's different. We could, yes, we potentially, we could get social service in here, but you have to put money into it.
Yeah.
What's the argument for including the annex into this stuff? Like for the cost saving part?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
What's the argument for including the annex in for cost saving? For saying to like keep it all in, or not the annex, the Staples House? Because I know I've met people in that arts collective. I like that idea a lot, but the argument for doing it all right now is because the synergy of this building.
Yeah, I'm referring to this building. I think I didn't think of your point on the Staples house. But I agree. Older historic buildings have other things hiding beneath the walls when you start to do things. So,
Do we need to do Staples House right now if we're going to focus on the annex?
I'm sorry.
Well, they're a player to move in, aren't they?
Yeah.
No, I understand. We need to renovate Staples House now since it's part of some public thing.
No, I mean, if you chose to move social service in, then you could leave it as is and, not renovate it.
We welcome them to come in and use the property as is.
Yeah.
So, I've been thinking about this. I know we all have. And this is like an interesting test. Like we're all, for us new counselors, like here we go. This is like really what we're kind of charged to do. These are hard choices. These are really hard choices because, as you say, Keith, no one here doesn't agree with the value of bringing in our community partners into this place. They need it. They need us. It's a good idea. It's a really good idea. Kath, I think you might remember. My memory serves. I remember talking about the idea of kicking cans down the road. I remember probably maybe 20 years ago or so, maybe a little longer than that. The town had the opportunity, if I'm not mistaken, to buying the building across the street from
Greenbrier.
for $1 million.
Yeah, Greenbrier.
Right, Greenbrier. And that could have been
Town Hall.
Town Hall.
That's what it was supposed to be.
And there was an organized opposition to the idea of spending $1 million on something like that. And for whatever reason, the bond was a bond. No, it never got there. Right. The council basically at that time chose not to bring it to the community. And the choices that were made 20 plus years ago are now here. And so we have to, I think, realize that the decisions we're making are going to echo down over the next 15, as you say, 20 years, right? With the bridge, God willing, right? And a beautiful campus that would be the envy of New England, right? With a high school that will still be state of the art in 15 years. So I struggle with that, and so I think, but the response to that struggle, I think, and the way to solve that problem is to really prioritize, and that's why we have 7-year capital plans, and that's why you present them to us, because we need to be thinking about down the road a fire station, right? Which, in my personal point of view, is a greater priority than whether or not we put air conditioning or avail this building to anybody. And the other thing I'm concerned, as you said, this is a big year, and that $14 million is going to be on the, more like, I can't speak for everybody. I think it's going to make it to the referendum. So if I'm thinking about it as, and I'm a community member, and I see $14 million for the HVAC for the high school, $7 million for the town hall index, and $4 million for new roads. I am not. I think you said it's unlikely. There's a significant likelihood that only 1 or 2 of those pass, right? And so if we go to the town with $7 million here, right? To Dave's point, $7 million that will be portrayed, rightly or wrongly, as not necessarily been fully vetted when the 1928 building was put in. That I think there'd be some resistance in the community. I can't say it another way. As for the Staples House, my feeling on it is simply, I love the idea of giving it to the art group. Here you go, figure it out. Raise money, do your thing, whatever you got to do. We won't stand in the way, but we're not in a position to build that building out for anybody, given the potential financial burdens that we get to start pulling things apart. So, I mean, it's going to take a lot for me to want to support, really, truthfully, anything as it relates to the annex. But I'm not naive to the fact that what I just said is equally true about that, which is to say, we kick it down the road. The $1 million deal that we had 20 years ago, which is now a $20 million plus deal, right? If we don't do this now, and there's going to be a need for it, we're going to have to do it at some point, because we're not tearing the building down. So to Nadine's point, we're not going to leave the building vacant, right? So while I think I understand the cons all too well about piecemealing out the project, I think I could probably get behind the AC portion of it, the HVAC portion of it, as a stepping stone, right? Because then we'll have the building ready for when we want to do more. And I think we just have to be honest with the community and honest with our community partners that really want to avail themselves to the building. Guys, look, we get it. We understand. But we're in a challenging spot right now, and for all the reasons Dave just said, right? And we've got to figure this out. Still, this is brand new for us. We're still trying to figure out how to bring the 1920 out to because we're going to have to staff and heat and do all the things for both buildings. And I don't think that question was truly fully vetted when the referendum on the 1928 building was put forward. With all due respect, I think people just have to understand that. I think they have to be patient with us. I think the HVAC is a really important part because by doing that and not going to the $7 million for the full project, it does give us flexibility to respond to your suggestion, which I think is actually, which at first blush was like, $500,000 a year, and we build it out over time. My first reaction, right? Well, who wants to do that? But at least, what it does do is it allows us some flexibility down the road to respond to that, and I think that might be how I ultimately land on it. Understanding full well there's a cost attached to that, but there are costs I think I'm more willing to bear than others. Retrofitting a building will have certain deltas that over time will impact the cost. Maybe if we wait 2 years, 3 years out. HVAC though is can get really expensive if we don't do it right and do it in a timely way. I understand that. So what I really want to have happen at this referendum, with respect to the bonding questions, I really want the HVAC project to pass, and I really want the roads to pass. Those are critical. Those aren't, as people may have characterized, those aren't wants. Those are needs. Those are needs. This is more.
And when you say the HVA, you're talking about the school.
Correct. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are needs. Those are needs, contrary to what may have been portrayed in public comment.
Yeah.
This is. I'm not saying it's not.
It's not an immediate.
It's not an immediate need. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to say. So if I'm going to balance my priorities, I think that's how I would do it. That being said, if the council votes, to do it, I understand that. I would probably vote along with it just because I think it's important we send a message to the community that we're all relying on this. I don't want it to turn into a football. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's all I got on it, and I'm curious to see how everybody else turns out.
Thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead, Bruce.
I think we're collectively coming to an uncomfortable truth that some of the previous decisions are hamstringing us more than we wish it did. Because if we look at, the past 4 years in a row, clicking on 30 million, 30 million, 30 million, there's a fire station out there, another 30 million, not quite all of them, but that's kind of the path we've been on. And there's only so much we can eat. And I think the uncomfortable truth is this may be, a bridge too far. And I think my thinking lines up a lot with yours, Bill, in that the things, the schools, AC, and the roads are must-dos. If I'd really like to see us be able to do the annex and the Staples House, I think those are important things to do, but there's only so much we can eat, and really pushing that out and giving us a little bit of breathing room. I think while it's going to be a hard decision, I would want to go there too. I don't really want to bite off that 7 million on top of everything else and push the community to that, especially when we're banging on that fire station next year. And that's another one of those must-dos, right? So we've got the school AC, we've got the roads, and we've got the fire station, which we are all 100% committed must be done. And that keeps us on that uncomfortable path that we're on. There isn't the bandwidth there. And I think we just have to face that fact.
What's the age on the AC up here?
We did when did we do the energy Amoresco project?
2015,
2010.
I know it was
2010, so it's 16 years old. And then they've said it's dead. We can't start maintaining it is throwing money after bad.
Right. And I think the Amoresco, we didn't really do
Right.
the thing.
We did more, the Amoresco thing was more controls and putting in variable drive fans and things like that. We put in new piping for the copper piping. It's hot water heat. So it's just carrying the water through and then putting fans at the various.
So the main issue with it has been the heat.
Well, so in our report condition analysis, it says, for example, hot water piping distribution system appears to be original to the building. Which could have, so there's been some things that have never been upgraded.
That has been upgraded. That was the one thing that was the.
Oh, that one was upgraded in Morrisco.
I would say it was, again, it's sort of like half a loaf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Half a loaf.
The actual boilers themselves were not replaced.
So they're
We're having problems mainly with the boilers right
One's
now.
down, one does not.
One, we have, it's a redundant system, so if one goes offline, we have a backup one. One is totally offline and has been for the past.
So we don't have a backup.
But it has been giving us issues every year. For the past
This year
couple of
they
years.
had no heat in here for a few days.
Last week, it was 2 weeks in a row. We've had to make service calls and get the heat back online.
What are the costs on the service calls? Any idea?
I haven't gotten the bill yet.
Oh, wonderful.
$7 million.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
I mean, so this conversation kind of triggers back, the conversation we had when we first were discussing it, and that is the idea of doing a much more precise kind of study, right? That allows us to fully appreciate and understand what the actual needs are. I was trying to, because I want to convey the message, which is that we're taking it seriously and we want to do it well, and we're not just going to let it go away. But this might not be the year for it. And one of the, I think, half a loaf type of approach would be that let's do a full design study, a proper design study, and then have that information before us when we make further decisions. I think you can. I mean, I can see it in your face, and I feel it too. It's like, what's the right call here? And it's really hard.
It's a very difficult call. Very difficult call.
Kathy, can I ask a question? In last year's capital projects, it went out in out years for town hall improvements. Two different lines. I don't know which town hall is which, but the total between last year and 2032 was 1.8 million. So were there changes? I'm just looking at the this is last.
That was last
year's.
year.
Yeah. So in last year's budget, when we were discussing cap, I'm just curious if there were changes in evaluation or thinking or like
it was the way in which we would do that. That was kind of that phased approach where you're putting money each year to try to then build up and do it later. This is kind of front loading it now and bonding for it.
Okay.
So there's no money banked for it.
No.
All right. So
something to sleep on.
Yeah.
Right. It's good to get a discussion.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to note that there are people who are in this building every single day, in the probate court and in this room. As far as the town uses it every single day for all of our meetings, public meetings.
Should we? Sorry, it's not like we were wrapping up, but I just, so I don't want to throw a whole thing out, but should we say, like, on the capital part, is there any part of the BOE capital that needs discussion further, or is there anything that people have a hang up? I mean, if it's just to knock out that one page and we could consider some of the other stuff, but the only hang up I had, and Bill talked me down about some of this, was on the technology improvement slide. They had shown what was in the account. They had shown what the ask was. They had shown what the need was. If you added up what was in the account and what the ask was, they were going to have $100,000. I could be wrong on that number. $100,000 or so more than what the need was. And so I'm fully in support of getting them everything they need. But then when we see that new account where they're going to have $530,000, so I guess my question to them, which I asked, they essentially said it felt like it was that banking thing, and I could be using that word wrong. I don't want to put that on them, but it felt like it was basically like future technology needs. So is it one of these things where it's like what we're talking about with the town hall project? If we had kind of banked some money for some future need, is that like Bill, that would be? Is that just their best practices, or do you think? I don't want to make it.
No, I know it's fine, and I'm not gonna speak for them either. I'm just gonna say from my recollection of it is that that was kind of how they were that we're going to present this year, right? I think that's how they wanted to. They were.
You're talking about the banking idea?
Yeah. It wasn't presented like that before.
Yeah, so what the topic is that the board, and they do it more, and we've encouraged, collectively, we have encouraged the banking of, they put money in for architectural fees and different things. But what was getting kind of lost in transition, even when we have our capital meetings, is what is actually being banked and what is actually being spent. And so when I have our capital meetings with the Board of Education, we go through and say, okay, what are you using your money for? And this, and then I've had some conversations where I said, I think it would be helpful, even on our side, $30,000 is going to X, and 100's being banked because we know we have to buy a new server later on, and we bank it. And on the town side, we bank a couple $100,000 each year on our side to pay for our portion of the server. The board's banking the same thing on their side, and then 3 years later, we buy the server.
Yeah.
And so we use the banking method on both sides of the aisle. Now, I didn't hear about the technology, but I had suggested to them that it's clear, let people know what's actually being banked and what you actually are spending your money on.
Yeah.
So,
But these are designed. These are necessarily banking like the non-lapsing fund, right? This is specifically, they're attached to certain
Banking
projects.
towards the goal.
Exactly.
So right, these are not like we're just kind of slush funds of extra
No.
cash by any stretch of the imagination. It's kind of what you like what you do, which makes perfect sense.
yeah. No, it's banking for if you have to do the IAR design or something, and blah, blah, you save some money up, and then it costs $500,000.
Right, those funds are encumbered, I guess.
Yes.
Those funds are encumbered.
But just for the sake of in the past, when we have had really tight budgets we've needed some flexibility on the Board of Ed side, right? I think traditionally it is that technology account that usually it's the capital appropriation for technology that we end up getting a little bit back from what the presentation was. Am I remembering that wrong, or am I just being anecdotal, not necessarily?
I think that might be more just because I remember having been through some pretty challenging years, and they would go from a couple of different things. They would go to a couple of different things.
Yeah, I think last year it came from technology,
I think so
but
too.
not yet, because
That's right.
last year they requested 550, and we funded 475.
They got that generator over my dead body. So
That generator could have been had. By the way,
generator
that generator could have been had for a heck of a lot less money if it had been approved 5 years earlier.
Brian could be turning that switch across the
I think
street every time. He overpaid that. Brian could 100%.
So,
Yeah, but there's a service fee.
Furniture has been a big one that
Because
is.
I'm looking at the slide, so it's saying like their current balance is 123,000. They're requesting 550. Of that, they have 3 items: servers, network equipment, and infrastructure that are asterisk. Are the examples of banking, which equal $365,000.
Yeah, that's what. So that's where my
And
question.
then the difference, and the other 3 items were AV equipment, 90,000, teacher Chromebooks, 30,000, and IR data wiring, 85,000, which is 205,000. So that equates to 560,000. So to me, I'm confused.
Which still leaves
like,
extra money.
Yeah.
Yeah, after the bank. So that's exactly what my thinking is.
It would be.
could I look at that?
Yeah, so it would be really helpful to clarify
We interpret.
what they're saying there.
For the big one, and not to go everywhere, just why give Kathy a moment, just for us on the council.
They have that.
Is everybody good with
So it's
putting the AC on the bonding project as a bonding project?
673.
Yeah.
And for me,
Meaning HVAC.
HVAC.
The elementary
the
school.
big one, the big.
We want to make sure we're talking.
From my
673.
from my standpoint, I
Yeah.
am a little bit old school in that I went to West District. I'm okay. I don't think it's significantly hotter. My kids are all there.
Fortunately.
I have other family in Westwoods and East Farms. I'm fine with the AC, but I also understand it's a state thing too. So I would not get in the way. I would not stay on the desk and fight it. And I also think it's something that the town would vote for. And so I'm perfectly fine with it if everybody else is.
And I think
bonding.
I agree in the fact that if we're going to get funded state
35.
reimbursed, not going back to getting 14 million, and it's going to be 9 million.
That's 6.
Town is different.
You're right. That's
Than
good. That's
where we were before. Absolutely.
We still have to bond. We still have to put the question at 14.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Question at 14, but no, it
Until we
should
miss
be.
So
It should be
And they got
articulated that
673.
there's an expectation.
And they got 673.
Yeah, because it's
Expectation that it will be reimbursed by
Mhm.
this.
Right.
This
That's
is
what they
This
have,
point
that's what they
also, it's not
requested,
just
that's
schooling.
675,
You know, you get that
673.
Oh, gotcha.
ability
And this is 630, they have projects,
Which is
630 projects, they have
And as you have
42,000
20 or 24
well,
students, it's just
in
good
there.
to have fresh
We
air.
don't have open
Make
windows all the time.
from what
And I'll just
Okay.
add from I know we all survived living in Farmington, and I went to East Farms and Noah Wallace, and I survived laying on the floor and everything in the heat. But global warming, like it's a lot different, and I think it's a lot hotter. Even though with the stats that we're hitting those, I don't
The world
agree
has
with
changed.
the 85. The world has changed and is a lot hotter. So I am all for putting that as a bonding question.
well, remember the bond question will also can be phrased by indicating there's going to be a reimbursement attached to it, right? That goes. In other words, the question, or no, it wouldn't be in the bond. The question
It
itself.
won't be in
would
the actual question of being the bond risk.
In the explanation, I would hope that we can notate that because I think that's really important that folks know.
No, I think roads is a solid, requirement that we need, and I think the school project.
It's like one of the fundamental
HVAC
responsibilities
is-
of town government.
Basic
Make sure we got
maintenance.
road. That's just
Yeah.
fundamental. Fundamental.
Those are two gifts.
Teaching kids and public safety, getting people around. Non-negotiable. For my mind.
Did you figure my math?
Yeah, and what was the topic again?
Now, we're not going to
The big
take
topic?
any of this.
No, we don't.
Oh,
No,
it was technology was 550.
Yeah. I would
And then
say
the
that there's-
banking versus.
I'd say there's an extra $43,000 there, or something. What was?
Yeah, I think it was
43.
Yeah.
Between the 630 and the
That's how I
673. And so that goes across several of these. So I think that, personally, I think that needs to be further explored to show the difference in all these accounts that have banks.
I think give them an opportunity to explain what they meant by that. This
Yeah.
one, they didn't come across as clearly. Like,
Yeah, that'd be great.
that's probably a fair way. Again, that's
Yeah.
I think that's what's necessary.
And when I say that, again, I wasn't here for the conversation, is that they always have technology, so that it's a revolving account, so it would be banked in the account, and they keep that $43,000 in that account. And again, that's one way to do it, or.
Well, I mean, you can look at their end of the year statement, right? It's usually that account zeroes out for that year, for the most part, right? And then, but there might be some more money in there, but the expenditures for that year have been exhausted, and then there's more money as you go in because you're buying things not necessarily based on the fiscal year.
Right. I think that's the key. You're buying things at a different point. If you waited for the fiscal year and then had to buy, you might not actually
Get the good prices or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
take your money.
I think on both sides of the aisle on the capital.
Right.
Neither one of us ever have enough money in the capital.
Right.
And
Well, let's
so,
start with
and,
that.
and,
Right,
and,
let's
and-
start with that.
but the question is, if the town historically has made reductions in the capital for different things such as that, because it's a banking account, it's a different thing, because we always know we're gonna need the money, so it's like both sides of it. They should-
And I wouldn't dispute that there's need, and I don't think anybody's intentionally adding fluff, and I'm not, just
Right, just
that was the one thing.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty lean, I think.
Yeah.
Considering, but also two extra things, putting out for bond question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other discussion?
No. So, do you want to, Brian, just talk about how we're moving forward?
Yes, I believe well, we're going to finish up relatively soon here. We're going to get together tomorrow and pick up. And would you like to cover, outline the things we're going to cover tomorrow?
Yeah, so tomorrow, we're gonna do the departments. Oh, wait, hold on. Write it down. We're gonna do public safety, public works, community, recreation. Then we're gonna do the special revenue funds, and then we're gonna do, revenue. So we have those. And then from there, it's really looking at the entire budget as you normally do.
Right.
So, people will be here at 4. Everyone will be. We'll also have the library will be here, and the registrar of voters will be here.
Do you present us with the questions in the motion?
Yes.
So tomorrow, potentially, there's the chance to vote on a budget resolution as a town council, correct?
Yes. The only thing, and I'm speaking for Joe right now and things like that, is that we are not, we don't have printers here. It's a little bit different as long as it's not overly complicated where we're trying to do with the finances and things like that, I think we're comfortable with that, you know, that, just to make sure that it's a little bit different, because we're not 100% set up down here. And we're not using that yet.
Do we bring a printer down here?
Yeah,
don't
no,
have
we
a
are.
printer or
We're bringing-
computer or
yeah,
desk.
we're bringing everything, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but yes, potentially, we could do that.
Okay.
Great.
And the only other caveat is just the warning has to be approved. So if you do make any changes under your discussion on the bond for this building, if you do make any changes to what I think you're going to do, then I'm going to have to rewrite the warning.
Okay.
So my typing skills aren't that great, so it may take me a few minutes to do it. You might want to
We'll just make-
something to amuse yourself for a while.
No, Joe, we can just make fun of you while you type and further distract you and make it take longer.
That's good. He turns off the computer so one can see. Yeah, so the answer to that is yes.
All right, I think we're in a good place for this evening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Tonight's.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much for your good work. Thank you, Kathy, Joe, Kat. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everyone here.